what am I to do but tear away when I'm boiling at the top? Try to find a way to fight the fire, smart derived from the minds of liars. To call the shots as you bow your heads, and the marching never stops. The stars could be free, but this insanity bends you right by the knee. Running in circles now for something that can't be found. And I bet as you hit the wall, the rain starts to fall. You can run away, sing a tune that's true. I'll be beside you. To decay from tears of blood, regrets of laughter. Turn around as your heart beat faster. Your hollow shape as the faith begins to drop. Shelter can find your thoughts of suicide. It's hanging down by the frail. Running in circles now.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight, we're going to be debating creationism versus evolution. And to kick us off, we have Mark Reid. So thanks for being here, everybody. And the floor is all yours, Mark.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And thank you, Ryan, for hosting. Thank you for watching. And thank you to Ross for being here to provide the challenge for evolution on the side of creationism. Now, the evidence for evolution, I'm going to go through this pretty fast because I've got a lot here. First off, what's evolution? So it's basically the change of heritable characteristics over time, and it only addresses diversity of life. Evolution is both a fact and a theory. So the reason why we say it's a fact is because everybody notices, like dogs breeding and cows breeding, the heritable characteristics will change over time. It's the theory of evolution that describes the processes that creationists usually have the problems with. We're about as certain about evolution as we are about the theory of gravity or the germ theory of disease, and there's no competing scientific theory. Creation science is a pseudoscience, and it doesn't meet the qualifications for a proper science. So here's a few of the evidence that leads us to exactly the same place on evolution. Now, actually, there's way more, and I couldn't fit them, but there's multiple converging lines of evidence that all point to the same answer and all back each other up. All of this has been unsuccessfully attempted to be explained and dismissed by religious people without success. I don't have time to cover them all, so let's focus on a couple that is the strongest evidence. Keep in mind, though, there's much, much more evidence that I could present today. We're going to focus on genetics and paleontology. I want to focus on novel testable predictions. They're testable predictions that turn out to be true when we sort of predict them in the future. There's many of those associated with evolution, but I'll give at least one for each line of evidence I present. So fossils are really solid evidence that organisms from the past are not the same as those found today. They are more basal or more primitive in structure or anatomy. So we do this by comparing the morphological or anatomical record. By comparing the anatomies of both modern and extinct species, we can infer lineages to those species. As you'll notice from the graph, the ones down the bottom are sort of very, very basal. They're very simple with hard body parts moving up to, for instance, you'll never find birds below the first amphibians. You'll never find that. In fact, you could disprove evolution by simply finding something out of order, but that has never been done. So Archaeopteryx is a prediction that came true. Darwin predicted it as a proto-bird with unfused wing fingers, and you can see the unfused wing fingers in the picture. It also had socketed teeth, which is distinct to reptiles and not birds. And it also has a bony tail, which birds don't have either. But it is clearly a bird with feathers, and it's a true mosaic. And this was predicted to be found and then found. This is tectonic. This is basically where people predicted that there would be a fish that could walk on land. And in fact, this is the first example of a fish that has wrist sockets, wrist bones. And it's a true mosaic between a fish and a tetrapod. They actually, in order to find this, they predicted where it would be found and in what strata it would be found, went to, I believe it was Nova Scotia, and searched at that layer. And they found exactly what they were looking for. So it's a fantastic prediction. Now, this is the complex part. This is probably the strongest evidence for evolution. It's retroviruses or endogenous retroviruses. So basically, a retrovirus is where a virus inserts its own DNA into a DNA of its host. AIDS, for instance, is the example of a retrovirus. It uses an enzyme called reverse transcriptase to make itself a part of that DNA. Make itself into DNA and then integrase to make itself a part of that DNA. So what happens is when it gets inserted, it has a very specific structure. It's got this LTR, or long terminal repeats, and that's where the integrases make cuts on either side in order to insert itself. It's got GAG, POL, and ENV sections, and they're very, very distinct. Now, how do we know that these sequences are retroviruses? Well, the main thing about them is about 8% of your DNA is these ancient remnants of viruses with this structure, the LTR, GAG, ENV, POL structure. The only way that can end up in every single cell of your body at exactly the same place, because don't forget that when a retrovirus infects an organism, it will infect a random part of that cell. The only way it can be in every single molecule of DNA is when a germline is infected, either an egg or a sperm. When that happens, the splitting, just say an egg gets infected by a retrovirus, it then splits into 2, 4, 8, 16, doubling all the time when it grows. That infection is then copied to every cell in the organism's body, because that's how cell duplication works when something is growing. So we know these have been infected in the very, very start of the organism, or the germline. So it becomes endogenized when it does infect one of these germline cells, and it becomes fixed when the, for instance, if there's a mutation and the virus turns out to be beneficial, it can then be passed and be a normal part of that organism's DNA, like it is in humans. And as I said, about 8% of our DNA is this retroviral sequences in every single cell of our body. So what does that mean? Why is that important? It's because some of these viruses are critical to how we function. For instance, the SIRH family, which is responsible for providing eutherians with the ability to make a placenta. Now, keep in mind, there's some animals that don't have this retrovirus in them, most notably marsupials and monotremes. They do have part of the family, but not syncytin, that the part that humans and other eutherians, mice, sort of every other horses, cows, every other eutherian has. So what it tells us is that this infected before the marsupials split off. And then there was an earlier version, the monotremes like platypus and echidna, that are extant species, that never got this kind of SIRH family at all. So that's where we can co-opt these viruses, allowing them to do beneficial things for us. And so what's the problem here? It's that this is complicated, but it's sort of how many ERVs we share with the other primates. Now, don't forget, because the ERV infects a random part, that we share about 205 of them with our closest animal to us, which is the chimpanzee or bonobo. So 205 of these things. The chances of that happening is incredibly, incredibly rare. It cannot happen. It's almost impossible. The most likely scenario, and then the one that is sort of scientifically backed, is that they infected us before the humans and chimpanzees split apart. And so we have these retroviruses in the same position because when we were infected, we weren't two different species. We were the same species. And that's incredibly complicated, and we're sort of tracking them. This is a much more simplified. So you can sort of see here that the virus has inserted itself before the branching. This is the only way to explain these retroviral sequences in there. So how do we, sorry?
Sorry, I was just letting you know that you have 3 minutes left on your extended intro,
Okay,
Mark.
sure,
just going to let everybody
sure.
know that we did agree to let Mark have, I'm just going to pause my timer. We did agree to let Mark have a 12-minute intro, so we'll let Mark carry on.
No problem. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Okay, so and keep in mind there's 8,000 separate ERVs in mammals. I'm sorry, I just yeah. So how do we know they're viruses and not just some part of our DNA? Well, we reactivated one of them. This is Phoenix Rising. It is a reactivated member of the HERV, or human endogenous retrovirus K family. It's the most recent sort of retrovirus element we could find, so the one in the most pristine condition. But they reactivated this part of our DNA, or some people's DNA, to bring it back to being a virus. Now, the virus wasn't very virulent, it wasn't very strong, but it was a virus capable of budding and sending out other viral elements to try and infect other things. So we know this is a virus. And that's Phoenix Rising. And I'll quickly go through chromosome 2 fusion. I'm running out of time, and this is very complicated. I do apologize. Now, chromosome 2 fusion is what we predicted when the ancestral chromosomes of Homo sapiens and pan troglodytes, or chimpanzees, and other apes were fused together. Now, what we predicted to find was a telomere site. Now, telomeres are at the end of the chromosomes, as you can see on the left here. What we predicted to find was a head-to-head fusion of very dense chromosomal repeats in the center where they shouldn't be. And that was what was predicted to be found if there was, in fact, a fusion between the two. And that's exactly what we saw. There's a large amount of duplications in a chromosome 2. The FISH analysis shows 2 head-to-head of degenerate telomere repeats, which is important because in order to fuse, they've got to be degenerate. And they go one way and then the other way, exactly what was predicted. So for context, the usual repeats in these sites are 2 or 3, sort of making them absolutely sort of indicative that 2 of these telomeric sites were fused together. So thank you so much. I know that was complicated, especially the genetic part, and I'm really looking forward to discussing it with Ross, and thank you for giving me an extended version because that was a lot. But that is the evidence for science. I will be looking forward to seeing the evidence for the creationist side. Thank you.
All right,
I
just put an end
my
to
time if there is.
Yeah,
left.
just put an end to the screen share there, and I just want to say a big thank you to Mark for his opening there. And, oh, it looks like our screens are a little bit different than what they were before, so I'll have to fix that up. But in the meantime, I want to remind everybody that Modern Day Debate is a neutral platform. We're hosting debates on science, politics, and religion. We hope you feel welcome here in this space. And also want to remind everybody that we are doing a live event September 16th in Houston, Texas. So if you want to check our description, you'll find our speakers there and tickets to that live event. Now, without further ado, let's let on Ross. I think this is your first time on Modern Day Debate. We're happy to have you, Ross, and we'll give you up to 12 minutes as well to expound on your intro there.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Excellent.
All right. I appreciate you guys having me. I appreciate Mark. Like I said, Mark, this is our first time meeting, but I feel like I know you already, man. I've heard this argument at least 100 times. I don't know how many times you debated on here, but however many times, that's how many times I've heard it. And bravo. I mean, I think that was the best. I think that was the best time that you displayed that. You know what I mean? I understood everything that you said clearly. I don't really want to rebuttal to anything directly until we get into the conversation point, I guess. But you kind of proved pretty much everything that I was going to assert in this debate from the beginning. I'm not sure if you think I'm a religious person, but I'm gonna tell you right now, this is a religious debate. You feel me? And there's a very, very deeply religious person in this debate. It's not me, Mark. Trust me. I'm the first thing away from being religious as you can possibly find. I don't believe anything, Mark. I don't believe in anything. You know, I grew up in church my whole life. My dad was a pastor. His dad was a pastor. So all I got told my whole life is, listen, I read this in a book. God told me that it's true. And so you have to believe it because I said it's true. And unfortunately, that's exactly what people who masquerade around now in the name of science do. They think that because they read something in a book, right, and their priest or their science priest told them that it was true, that makes it true. And then you get on here and you say that, oh, well, you haven't said it to me, so I'm not. But I've heard you get on here and tell other people that their position is dumb, or you condemn them the same people that religious people condemn people. Religious people, they have a viewpoint or a philosophy about something. And it may be right, it may be wrong, but the minute that they start thinking that their philosophy is true without evidence, right, without evidence, if you think your philosophy is true without evidence, and then you start condemning other people, you're now a very religious man. And that's why I said, Mark, you are as religious as they come. You're more religious than the Christians. You're a Scientologist or an evolutionologist or a 1,000-yearologist or million-year, whatever it is that you believe in that fills in the gaps for what we don't know scientifically. You believe in that and you just don't want to call it God or whatever. Well, guess what, Mark? I don't believe in God. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in Allah. I don't believe in Buddha. I don't believe in none of that. I don't believe in what people call science. I do, Mark, believe in the scientific method. Mark, I believe in the scientific method. All right. I hope you're understanding me. Just because somebody says something is science, that doesn't make it science. I took a shit earlier. That's science. No, it's not, Mark. You know what science is? Mark, science is you make an observation, right? And then you make a hypothesis. You make an observation and then you make a hypothesis. The first thing you make, Mark, is an observation and then a hypothesis, and then you have to test it. If you haven't done that, you're not science. I don't care how much you use the word science. I don't care how much you read in your Bible, your scientific papers. I don't care if your priest told you that what he said was true. It's not true unless you can show me experiments. And I hope we don't have to get into this, but I'm telling you, I have at least 20 minutes of video of you yourself. I can have this debate with you debating yourself because you've contradicted what you've done in this own presentation and other debates. You accuse other people of not bringing evidence, and you didn't really bring any evidence. And let me clarify. You did bring evidence, right? But and if you say you didn't say this, Mark, I'm going to play the video of you saying it. I have it right here. Evidence, right, means that whatever you're looking at has to point to only one conclusion. Only one conclusion. It can't be this is the most likely. The minute you start saying this is the most likely, or it looks like, or I imagine, that's why Ken Hovind and all them, even though that SpongeBob analogy is it's hilarious and it's probably annoying to you, it's the perfect analogy, right? Because you guys think you have a little bit of an observation, right? You observe this, and then you make these grand assumptions off some one observation, as if you didn't fill in 10 assumptions. You imagined, like SpongeBob, that we came from sponges, right? Isn't that crazy? Like, you never observed us coming from the sponge. You've never observed, think about it. The scientific method is number one, observation. Where is any scientific experiment or observation, right, that a sea sponge will evolve into something other than a sea sponge, right? I don't want to get into it right now. And honestly, I might even yield some of this 12 minutes because it's almost beating a dead horse. But we can get into all the scientific details. I have everything that you're saying right now. I have a scientific rebuttal to it. But it's almost beating a dead horse because no matter what, Ken, excuse me, Mark, no matter what, Mark, and if you say you didn't say this, I have the video right here. No matter what scientific evidence we look at, it is not conclusive. And you're lying if you say it is. You're lying because you're just saying it's most likely this. You don't pretend to know what happened at the beginning of the universe. Mark, you don't know what happened at the beginning of the universe, right? This is not about the Bible. This is not a debate about the Bible or God or religion or none of that. I'm not religious. I don't believe in nothing that anybody says unless they can show me experiments. Everything that you're saying right now, you can show me experiments, right, that prove that what you're saying might be an accurate piece of information. But there's nothing further than that. It doesn't now postulate that all that was created by nothing. You understand what this debate is about, Mark? It's not a scientific debate, all right? And if you try to pretend like it is, I'm going to jam that down your throat. It is not a scientific debate. There's no science that proves that we evolved from apes because you have not observed an ape turning into a human. guess what? Philosophically, maybe it makes sense. If you want to have a philosophical argument, right, about whether or not evolution is more likely than creation, then I'll do that. And you actually have some weight there. You have some leg to stand on in a philosophical argument, because maybe that makes sense. And guess what? In philosophy, we still examine evidence. Just because you look at data, that doesn't mean you know how to interpret the data. Just because you look at data, that doesn't mean you know how to interpret it, all right? So you have to look at things philosophically to interpret what the data means. You understand? So there is no scientific evidence that concludes that, what is this debate? Creation versus evolution. It's not about God. I didn't say God created it. I didn't say who created it. I said something. Something created it. It was created, because your position is that nothing created it. And you know, and I have the video on this too, so don't say you didn't say this. You know for a fact that this is a real dichotomy. It's not a false dichotomy. So if you say it's a false dichotomy, I'm going to play a video of you contradicting yourself. Something was either created or it wasn't. This is what the debate is about, Mark. It was either created or it was not. I'm not like, what? Look, you can pretend like it's a science debate. You don't have scientific evidence that concludes that we came from apes. You don't have that scientific evidence. According to you, evidence means that a piece of information points to only one conclusion. You talked about retroviruses and all that. Like I said, we can get into the weeds and all that. I really don't want to do it, because what that does is it's really just obfuscating. You're trying to talk in a way that maybe the average person is not trying to follow what you're saying. Mark, if you can't say something simply, you don't really understand it. All right. I believe this wholeheartedly. You can't say, if I say something, it's just too complicated for you to understand. That's crazy. The average person is not dumb, Mark. I'm the average person. You're the average person, Mark. Trust me. I've watched a lot of your debates, Mark. You're the average person. I'm the average person. Don't pretend like you're smarter than us. All right. If you can't take a complicated concept and break it down simply to where everybody understands it, you don't really understand it. You're just reading something. That's why I said you did a very good job this time reading that. You know what I mean? Like, you're a very, very intelligent man. I think this conversation can go somewhere, but you have to get out of the realm of thinking that you have scientific evidence for things you do not have scientific evidence for. And once you do, if you concede to that, we'll have a great debate about philosophically what makes more sense. What makes more sense? Did something come from nothing? Right? Did something come from nothing, or did something come from something? Right? Because that's what debate is about. Creation, evolution, not God. I'm not religious. I don't believe in the Bible. So don't straw man me. All right. Did something come from nothing, or did something come from something? What do we observe, Mark? What do we observe? Do we ever observe something coming from nothing? Scientifically, we do not observe that. All right. So evolution dies right there. As a science, evolution dies right there. Where have you observed anything that you're writing on those pieces of paper? You're showing me papers, right? Just like my pastor does. My pastor's like, hey, look what it says right here. You know why you should believe me? God told me. And you're saying, I should believe you because the scientist told you. So you're the science God, the God of a billion years, which you can't track, the God of whatever. All right. And I don't believe in God. You believe in God. Whatever your God is, you believe in God, the God of science, the God of Scientology. I don't believe in none of that bullshit. I believe in the scientific method, right? What can we observe and what is testable? And you know that is science. And if you say it's not, you're going to be debating yourself. I'm going to pull up video of you saying that it's not science if you don't observe it and have repeatable experimentation. We all have to be able to repeatable experimentation. I did an experiment one time and I got this outcome. Well, has anybody else done it? No. It was just that one time. Okay, that's not science. If you're being honest in this debate, you know it's not science. You know evolution has no scientific basis, right? It has philosophical basis, and it uses scientific evidence to postulate its philosophical basis. All right, I'm gonna just focus on the data. I'm gonna do what you accuse other people of not doing. What you think you do, you don't do it. You don't look at the data. You read it and you hear what your pastor tells you, and then you regurgitate it. You know what the data says? The data says we don't know. All the scientists that you're regurgitating say we don't know. Why? If you pretend like they say we don't know, please, I want you to die on that hill. Please pretend like you can find a scientist that will say, oh, I know for sure how the universe was created. No. We don't know. So we don't know for sure, then how is it science? If we haven't observed it for sure, how is it science? I mean, like I said, I know you want to get lost in all the weeds so that way people forget what I just said and you can move off that point, but you can't move off that point, Mark. It's hard. This is a philosophical conversation. It's not a scientific conversation. You like to pretend it is because you're a believer, Mark. You believe in science. You're deeply religious man. You're not just religious, Mark. You're deeply religious. You're religious. You're more religious than my dad. My dad was raised by a pastor, and he's a pastor to this day. You're 10 times more religious than he could ever be, because somebody says something on a piece of paper. You don't do the experiment yourself. You don't even dive deep into what they're saying is true. You don't even dive deep into what that person concludes at the end, because you'll show experiments from people, and then I'll go look at what those people think, and they'll say, well, the conclusion of this experiment is we don't know. You know that's true. Every scientific experiment we've ever done that tries to prove any of this that we're talking about, creation, you want to start off with evolution in the middle of the house and pretend like abiogenesis doesn't. Nigga, you have to deal with abiogenesis before you start talking about whether or not a monkey turned into a human.
1 minute.
1 minute?
Yeah.
Okay. How did the monkey get there? You feel me? Like, you can't deal with that. No scientist can deal with that. I'm not saying that you can't, maybe one day prove that monkeys evolved into humans, but guess what? You still won't have proven that there wasn't a creator to spark that monkey. Where did the monkey come from? You can't prove that something came from nothing. You can't prove that. You cannot show that. This is a philosophical debate, not a science debate. Do not lie to the people, Mark. You're a religious man. You're lying in the name of science, and I don't like it, okay? I do not like religious people, and I grew up religious. That's why I know a religious zealot when I see one. You're as religious as they come. I'm done.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Ross, for your introductory statement there. We let everybody have a slightly longer introduction, so don't mind us over here at Modern Day Debate. It promises to be a juicy one, I think, tonight, everybody. So, keep yourself in your seats, sit down before you fall down, and give this stream a like while you're at it. We're going to kick it into open floor format, and we usually kick it to the other side. So, Mark, you can kick us into our open discussion.
Yeah, so I'm kind of confused on where the creationism evidence was in all of that. It seems to be angry at my position. So just
I'm not angry at all.
So I don't know. I didn't hear anything. So maybe we can go into that. But also, I want to know if sort of God didn't create it. If you're not sort of giving the God creationist position, then who are you saying the creator is exactly?
This is a debate about evolution versus creation. Period.
Yes.
The idea is that something evolved from nothing, or that something had to have a creator there. I'm not religious, so I don't pretend to know things I don't know. So you want to ask me to do like what you do and postulate about things that I don't know, but I don't know that. So I'm going to say I don't know because I'm not religious. I look at the scientific evidence. The scientific evidence says that we don't know who created it. But guess what? Most likely something created it. If we walk in through the desert and we find a bicycle, something far less complicated than the human mind or the human brain, are we going to assume that just because we don't know who created it, that it happened spontaneously? Maybe, right? Maybe you can have a philosophical argument there, right? Maybe. Did it happen spontaneously, or did somebody probably create it, or something? So I don't know. I didn't say it's God. You don't have to believe in God. You have to believe in religion. You can and I know
aliens, or what position are you actually taking?
No. Well, you believe.
So you're not taking a position on this.
So you don't believe that you believe something came from nothing.
So this debate is about evolution, which explains the biodiversity of life. It doesn't explain the origin of the life, and it certainly doesn't explain. It certainly doesn't explain the origin of the universe.
You're making that up. You're making that up. It says evolution versus creation.
I'll read out my
against creation. Slides. How did it start? Did it start from being created? That's what creation is. It started from a creator. So don't straw man me. I don't believe in God. Did it get created, or did it evolve by itself? That's what we're debating. You can't run from that. And if you want to debate philosophically whether it evolved by itself, there's a good discussion to have there. But scientifically,
I'll read out my. Yeah, sure. Sorry, Ryan. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we can let him wrap up there,
my
Ross,
bad.
if you want. Okay, you're good.
Okay.
All right, we'll just try to mitigate the interruptions there, because I don't want to get too liberal with the mute there.
If you want to do segments, I don't mind doing that. I don't mind. I apologize.
All right, if you guys want, we can do a little bit of cross-examination if you want to ask questions to Mark, as you just did.
I want the cross-examination. I have questions. Like, you're claiming to be science. You're saying that evolution is science for sure. We know for sure.
I'm not claiming to be science.
Well, who's claiming that?
Well, I never said I was science. I'm saying
so you're not claiming evolution is science.
Scientists in.
Hold on a second there, Ross.
So we agree on that. We agree on that. We can agree evolution is not science.
No. I'm simply communicating the results of science to you. Like, I never claimed I was science. I don't know what even that means.
I'm talking specifically about evolution being a science. They're claiming that they know for sure when they have no scientific evidence. You have scientific evidence, but it doesn't only point to that one conclusion, because there's a number of other things that could arise. Oh, really?
All right, so here's how we're going to do our cross-examination here, fellas.
You want to lock that in?
What I'm going to do
Lock that
is,
in.
all right, Ross, what I'm going to do, because I don't want to put you on mute there, because you are cutting off Mark quite a little bit. It's all right. You know, sometimes we have delays. Sometimes there's skips in the internet. So we try to give the benefit of the doubt, but we do want to mitigate the interruptions. So what we'll do is I'm going to start a 15-minute timer, and I'm going to let you ask questions to Mark, and then you got to give him time to answer. Otherwise, I'll put you on mute. So I'm going to start a 15-minute timer, and you go ahead and ask your questions, and then we'll vice versa.
Okay. And also, Mark, I don't mind it if you want to follow up and stuff like that. You feel me? And if I interrupt you, like I said, just let me know and I'll cut it back. Okay. So, like I said, right, I know you want to pretend like it's just about the middle of the house, right? Oh, well, how did man evolve from monkeys? But you have to explain abiogenesis if you can postulate, right, that all this got here without a creator. To me, right, I don't claim that I know anything that doesn't have a scientific experiment that points directly only to that. So what evidence do you have that points directly to the fact that something aroused or was created from nothing, or that it's even possible? Not even that it happened. What evidence do you have that it's even possible for something to come from nothing?
Oh, that's it?
That's my question.
Yeah. Okay. So the abiogenesis isn't a theory that evolution is. Evolution is theory, which is the strongest sort of set of knowledge that we have, like germ theory or theory of gravity. It's basically it's very, very strong. So abiogenesis is sort of more a hypothesis, and there's multiple hypotheses. I personally lean towards amyloid world, which does explain how some of the protein chains got together.
In theory, it explains it in theory. We haven't
sure, but when we're talking about evolution, we're talking about the biodiversity of life.
That's what you're talking
about. That
1 second,
the biodiversity.
We'll let him answer the question. We'll kick it back
Ross,
to you,
please. That how the diversity of life, biodiversity, got there. And I mean, I can read out what I gave as my definition for evolution as well. So if you're talking about sort of some straw man of evolution, I can't help you with that. So evolution is the change of properties of groups of organism over the course of generations. It embraces everything from slight changes to proportions of different genes to population of the alterations that led from the earliest organisms to dinosaurs, bees, oaks, and humans. And that was the first definition I gave. So that doesn't cover abiogenesis. It's just from the first organism onwards. So, I mean, you can sort of talk about creationism, but what I'm not hearing is anything for your version of creationism to say, hey, these organisms were placed there by some creator. You're basically saying you've got no evidence for that and don't even believe in a God creating them.
All right, we'll kick it back over to Ross to ask another question there of Mark Reid. Sorry, I put you on mute there, Ross.
It's fine.
The audio's
I got it. You're good.
All right.
Okay, so listen, I pretty much agree with everything you said. Like we're already on the same page, but you're just so religious that you don't understand it, right? We both agree that by the scientific method, evolution doesn't have a leg to stand on. Creation doesn't have a leg to stand on. Nobody has a leg to stand on. We don't know. Nobody knows. Everybody agrees with that. You agree with it. You just said, because you said in theory, this, that, and the third. In theory, this, that, and the third. I asked directly, what evidence that do you have directly? Something can come from nothing. It was a trick question because we don't have any evidence for that. The answer is we don't know. Now, if you want to know why, because this is a debate about creation versus evolution. And like I said, it's a philosophical debate. It's a philosophical debate. So to answer your question, why is my philosophy that it had to be created somehow? Because of what the scientific evidence shows us, right? The scientific evidence shows us that we have all these complex systems that exist, and we can trace everything back to an origin at some point, except for obviously, like, let's say the laws of physics, right? The laws of physics are consistent. So maybe the laws of physics is what gave us the life that we have. Okay, but what put the laws of physics there? So if you don't agree that something created the laws of physics, then you agree that the laws of physics were already there. And like I said, I'm like, this is a philosophical debate, and there's a good conversation to have there, right? Were the laws of physics already there, or did the laws of physics get created by something, somebody, something before it? I don't believe that it's even like, it doesn't even make philosophical sense to me to think that you could walk by a bicycle in the desert and think that it got there by itself. Or what about a supercomputer? If you walk by a supercomputer in the desert, would you think, oh yeah, no, the supercomputer probably got there by itself? Okay, every cell in your body is more complicated than every supercomputer. We have millions of cells. We have all these complex organisms with all these millions of cells, right? You're explaining retroviruses and how that helps us adapt to our environment. That doesn't prove evolution. All that proves is adaptation. So you would prove that we can adapt, but that doesn't mean that somebody or something or however we were created, that doesn't even prove that we could not have adapted.
Okay,
I'm glad you
just not to inject here, and I know
cut me off.
You're on a good you're on a good spiel there, but this is where you're supposed to ask a question to Mark. There's my bad. We're doing a cross examination, so
I was responding directly to what he said. Okay, so my bad, Mark. So my next question is since we both agree that it's maybe you do have the best theory based upon the scientific evidence that we have. Maybe that scientific evidence points more in your direction, right? Maybe it does, right? That evolution, because you want to talk specifically about that. But how do you reconcile that if you don't deal with abiogenesis, you need a creator to even start what you're talking about? So how do you reconcile that? Because at some point you have to give in to a creator. You have to say, even if we prove all this evolution, there's a creator. So what is before, I mean, you understand what I'm saying? I know you said you have a different theory on that, but how do you reconcile with that philosophically? How does it philosophically make sense that something can come from nothing?
Okay, so first, scientific methodology is a philosophy. It's methodological naturalism. If you didn't know, the philosophy of science is actually a pretty well-established field. You can probably look into that. So when you sort of say observed, you're sort of saying, well, we've got to see it in front of our eyes. There's a lot in science that we don't observe directly. So no, we don't have to observe things directly. That's how inference works. I've never observed a volcano forming, but science will tell us a lot about volcanology and how these things form. Geologists work with rocks. I never see any of the rocks form, but they still work with rocks and they can tell me how they form. We don't have to observe it directly in order to know, and that's basically
you don't have to observe it to be science.
Now, life isn't a supercomputer. That's the thing. They're completely different things. And it's interesting that you brought up sort of the bicycle, because the bicycle is a more efficient form of for traveling than any form of life. We've actually invented a way more efficient form. So I don't think sort of calling organisms a supercomputer is necessarily very productive or very accurate at all, because we're certainly not supercomputers. And when you say it might be the best theory, it is the only scientific theory. I don't hear a lot of other hypotheses being presented tonight that we can sort of dig into and find. You've just sort of said, well, I'm not religious. I don't say God. I just say creator somewhere, but you're sort of refusing to define what that actually is. And the whole idea that we have to give in to a creator, we don't have to give. There's naturalistic explanations for everything.
Give me one.
If you are asserting a creator, then you've got to present evidence for said creator.
Everything we see is created. That's the evidence. Everything is created. We're talking on computers. It was created. What happened from nothing? Name one thing that happened from nothing.
Well,
so rocks are created.
Just 1 second there, Ross. And you did ask another question, I think, which was to provide. You said one example.
I want the one example of that was my initial question. You haven't given me that answer. You're
example of what?
Skating, and it's working on me. You feel me? Because you're a smart guy, and I like listening to you. You are. But what is one example of something that has come from nothing? Name one thing.
Okay. So when you say something that's come from nothing, nobody in science is asserting that something came from no thing, a philosophical nothing.
Then you agree with me. We're on the same team.
The problem that you're under is that you've read the title, and this has been paraded around by creationists, of Lawrence Krauss's book, which was A Universe from Nothing. And what he's referring to when he's referring to nothing is actually a quantum field state, a temporal quantum field state.
That's
so when
something.
He says
that's not nothing. You can't confuse me by saying something is nothing just because I call it something else. Nothing.
Well, can you give me an example?
A quantum field state is something.
Can you give me an example of nothing?
No, that's my point. Is that it cannot exist. Nothing that but that's why I don't even know why you're even having this debate, because it's a loss for you. Everything has to be created, even if you have evolution, even if you prove it, but you haven't. Even if you do, though, you still have to reconcile abiogenesis. You still have to reconcile peptide coupling. Right? What? Peptides do not couple in water, right? There's no experiment. I know all the evidence, and I know what the conclusion is.
Yeah, amyloid weld doesn't involve water at that stage. So yeah, that's
okay. So
yeah.
How do you know? How do you know that? How do you know that?
All right, you still got 6
I mean,
minutes,
I've read about amyloid weld.
Because you read about it in the Bible, right? The Bible told you. That's
not the Bible.
You're religious. I asked you how you know. You said I read. That's what my dad does.
No,
he reads and he tells me what he read was correct no matter what. You just did that.
See, that's the thing. We're not saying that amyloid weld, we know that to be correct. We're saying that's one of the hypotheses that have been presented as a naturalistic explanation for, where the first life came from, as opposed to evolution, which explains the biodiversity of life after it has formed. So, but the whole idea that it must be, the whole idea that you must give into this idea of a creator it's flawed, because you're not giving any evidence for a creator. Well, naturalistic processes. I've already said that. So the whole idea that you have to give into this idea of a creator when there's no evidence being presented for any such creator, just hey, I'm incredulous that it could have happened by natural processes.
I didn't say it was science, though. I didn't say it was science. So don't strawman me. You're strawmanning me because I didn't say it was science. So I'm not saying that I need evidence to prove it, because I'm saying it can't be proven. But what we both agree on is that if you look at the scientific evidence, what your position is, I'm saying that, maybe it's most likely, right? I'm saying
you don't believe in your position then. No. Created.
I don't believe in anything except scientific evidence, sir. I'm
not like
you. I'm not religious. I'm not like you. I only believe in what I see in the scientific evidence. It's not conclusive.
Right, it's not 4 minutes before we flip the scales, and we're going to let Mark grill you for a little bit on your thoughts there. But so 4 minutes to ask Mark some more questions.
So I just want to establish a question again, though, Mark. I'm saying that even if you look at the evidence and it does prove your brand of evolution, right? Your brand. I'm debating creation, right? The idea that something had to either be created or it evolved without a creator or not a creator. These are your two options, all right? So I agree with what you're saying about the scientific evidence. It looks like blah, 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 right? Okay, philosophically, we can debate on what it looks like, but we both know the scientific evidence isn't conclusive. So please give me one evidence of something that came from nothing. And I know, and like I said, I know it's a trick question. That's why I'm like, it's almost an unfair debate, because we all have to agree that something came from nothing. You know what I mean? I don't have to believe in a religious doctrine to believe that something created the earth. I don't believe in what these people say about God or Allah or the creator. I don't believe them, right? I believe in what I can see with the scientific evidence. And I'm asking for that. I want the evidence. If you have it, that proves to me that something can happen without a cause. Because you're going against the laws of physics right now. You're saying that the laws of cause and effect don't apply now. I'm like looking at the laws of physics and saying there has to be a creator. If you have evidence for that, I'll take it now. Other than that, I'll turn it over to you and you can ask me whatever you want. But I'm like, that's really my position, though. I'm like, I know what the scientific evidence says. We can look at the cosmic microwave background deeply and both agree that Lawrence Krauss says that after 3 readings of the cosmic microwave background, it looks like the Earth is the center of the universe. Don't say he didn't say that. Don't say he didn't say that. Don't laugh like Lawrence Krauss. I have the video of him saying it. He literally said, well, yeah, it looks like the earth is in the center, but we're really not sure. That's the answer from your gods or your priests. They don't know. So if you know better than them, show me what they're not telling me, because they're not willing to sit here and debate this because they know they don't know. So you tell me what you know better than the scientists. You're the one disagreeing with scientific consensus. I'm with scientific consensus. We don't know. Apparently, Mark knows, right? He's better than scientific consensus. Mark, give us the evidence.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up scientific consensus, because evolution is sort of scientific consensus all over. So Lawrence Krauss didn't say the Earth was, excuse me, Lawrence Krauss didn't say that the Earth was the center of the universe. He's basically saying that at any point in the universe, it looks like you are at the center, right? So that's everywhere is the center of the universe. So it's the way we view and the way light travels is why he referred to this. And he said, in a sense, yes, Earth is the center of the universe, but everywhere is the center of the universe because of the light moving away from it. So I'm not a subscriber to Lawrence Krauss particularly. I think that some of this stuff is flawed. But it's not a trick question that you're asking about a universe from nothing. It's a straw man, because I don't think the universe came from nothing. In fact, I'm a subscriber to Sean Carroll's hypothesis, which is the many worlds hypothesis, which sort of says that at the beginning of the universe it was atemporal. After sort of the presumed origin, it's sort of, that's when space-time got developed. So before that there was no time, and therefore atemporal. I don't have a brand. The evolution's brand is integrated synthesis is what we're up to. That's scientific consensus from over sort of 99% of scientists and almost every single biologist out there. So it's weird that you appeal to scientific consensus when it's so firmly in favor of evolution, and it is probably the most tested hypothesis and has overcome every single challenge. What I don't notice, even though I'm presenting all this evidence, is you presenting any evidence against it. You're just basically saying, hey, you've got a religion too, but it's not a religion, because basically everything is up for challenge in science. There's no religion here. It's basically that if you can present evidence to overturn it, then please do so, and people will listen to you. Mary Schweitzer famously sort of overturned the length at which we know that sort of blood can be preserved, soft tissue rather, not blood, soft tissue can be preserved, because she found collagen in a T-Rex. So we know that these things can be overturned. We're not believing this on faith. You challenge it.
Are.
Please do.
Yep. I'm look.
All right, this will be the last question there, Ross, and then we'll kick it over to Mark.
I mean, my questions have already been answered. What he's doing, right? Because I think about it. I was asking him questions this whole time. At the end of his statement, what does he say? You haven't presented me any evidence. Okay, but I asked you for evidence. So why are you saying I haven't presented evidence, buddy? I'm not claiming to be science. So why are you asking me for evidence, right? And you can't straw man me by saying that I believe in God or I'm denying science. No. You're right. Scientific consensus is on the specific things that you said. Those specific things are not conclusive. They have not solved the abiogenesis problem. If you say that they have, then you are lying, young man. Lee Cronin, right? These are the leading researchers in synthetic chemical in synthetic chemical research. These are the people doing experiments today on chemical research. Lee Cronin said he'll probably create life in 2 years. This was 10 years ago. Jack Sosnet from Harvard, right now at the University of Chicago, he said he would create life in his lab in 3 to 5 years. That was like in 2012. None of these experiments have successfully created life, and we're just talking about peptide formation, because they're not even dealing with the fact that you can't factor in how to get amino acids from nothing. So what they're doing is they're taking amino acids and they're trying to get them to form naturally in labs right now. They can't do it. If you say they are, then you're lying. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And then you literally said, Lawrence Krauss did not say we're in the center of the universe. I didn't say he said we were in the center. Actually, I said, he said it looks like we're in the center. And you said, Lawrence Krauss said, it's going to look like you're in the center of the universe wherever you are. So basically he said, it looks like we're in the center. That's the same thing. Stop trying to confuse the people. You think that you're smarter than everybody, but you're really not. You just read something and you think, oh, I read this and I can recite it, so that makes me smart. That does not make you smart. What makes you intelligent is you can take complicated things, you can break it down so simple a child can understand it. I can explain the things that we're talking about right now to my 5-year-old. I'm dead serious.
We got to the end of our 15-minute timer there, so I will kick it over.
Can I respond to that?
Oh, of course. I think the final question there from Ross at the end of all of that was the center of the universe point there. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah. So I didn't lie. What I'm saying is that the way that you said it, you suggested that Earth is sort of looks like it's the center of the universe. And my point is, as you sort of conceded, was that Lawrence Krauss said that everywhere looks like the center of the universe. So there's nothing particularly remarkable about that. I mean, and sort of what you're sort of saying is, I never said there was consensus on abiogenesis. I said there was consensus on evolution, which is actually the topic of the debate, as well as creationism, which we haven't heard a lot of, but so this whole idea that I'm saying there's consensus on abiogenesis, I never said that. I said there's multiple competing hypotheses, which says that alone says there's not a consensus. But on evolution, the theory of evolution, there is a consensus. That is absolutely a consensus. And if you say otherwise,
I have the quotes.
Well,
right
I
here.
mean, so what
Origin of life
scientists-
research is a scam,
Well,
and there's lots of ways to the scam. Professor Lee Cronin, that's a direct quote. These are the researchers in your field trying to prove evolution.
So
and they're bad.
evolution isn't
Just hold on
origin
one
of
second
life.
there, Ross. We'll let him wrap up, and then we'll kick it over to him for his cross-examination. So,
Evolution isn't origin of life, it's biodiversity. So I don't, this is the straw man that you're doing. Evolution doesn't explain where life comes from. It only explains how it got to the diverse array of organisms it is at the moment. So I don't know why you're sort of straw manning and getting the wrong topic for the debate. It might be a lack of understanding on your part on what evolution actually is. So, when you're talking about evolution, you're talking about biological evolution, not abiogenesis. So I'm not sure why you're going into that.
All right. Well, before we kick it over to Mark to do the cross-examination, I just want to remind everybody that we are going to do a Q&A at the end of this conversation. So no matter what spiciness and goodness you're hearing on the screen, make sure that your Q&A is on point and that it's not attacks against our speakers, because we love our speakers. And we're going to kick it back over to Mark to ask questions to Ross. So, Mark, the floor is yours.
Can I just give a little 30-second response to what you just said? I just want to say, like I said, I agree with you on what we have evidence on, but we don't have evidence on how life started. Okay, we don't. So I'm saying that it has to be a creator. It's creation versus evolution. It's not creation of man or evolution of species. It's creation, period. All right. And there's no evidence that something could evolve without nothing. That's the real debate. Stop confusing the people. All right.
All right. 15 seconds. Over to Mark to ask questions to Ross. So, Mark, the floor is yours to ask questions, and we'll let Ross respond without interruption.
Excellent. Have you ever observed something being created?
Yes. I created
what have
my
you
son.
Observed being created?
I created my son. I watched him come out the womb. It was nasty as hell.
So you created that, did you? You created it
out of
nothing?
Not out of nothing, no. It's impossible. Not out of nothing, no. It's impossible to do that.
Isn't that a natural process?
Sure, whatever word you want to say. Let's not get into semantics. Like, what are you trying to say?
Well, it's not like you.
Just tell me what you want to say.
It's not like you took a hammer and created your son by building him. You just
a process took place.
You have a natural process. Yeah,
process took place. Yes.
So where in all of this natural process you would agree that sort of when we go back, humans have been creating each other for ages. Yeah. Where does the creator come into the picture?
Well, what do you mean, where does the creator? You just said humans have been creating each other, right? I didn't specify a creator. Yeah. The creator could be humans. You just agreed with me, right? Humans is a creator, isn't it? You just said humans have been creating. You just said humans have been creating each other. You inserted the creator into the question. So I think philosophically, you're not thinking critically enough. You like to pretend like you're smarter than everybody else, but I don't think you're as smart as you think you are. It's a very simple concept. Creator, something needs something to do it, right? It can't be nothing.
Could you give me a definition of could you give me a definition of creationism?
I think
your definition.
Yes, it's a philosophical belief, right? That something cannot arise from nothing. That there has to be a beginning, right? That the laws of cause and effect, because everything that I see has a cause and effect. So I don't believe in cause without effect. That's really like my right. I believe in the scientific method, cause and effect. Because ultimately, that's what scientific method is trying to protect people against religious zealots who come in the name of science and say that they have scientific information when they don't. If you do, then give me an experiment I can replicate on my own. It's observable, repeatable. Observable,
okay. Repeatable. So the normative definition for creationism is sort of a belief that the origin of life.
That's a straw man. Because you're telling me what somebody else's definition of it is. Isn't that literally a straw man? Like, just debate what I'm saying. I'm saying that, look, the evidence, I'm not going to throw it out. But how did it get there? How did the evidence get there? How did it start? And like I said, if you agree with me that we can have a philosophical debate on that, then I'll concede a lot of ground. You feel me? Because yeah, you're right. I'm just basically saying I don't know at the end of the day. But I don't respect people that say that they know when they don't. I don't like that.
So how can you address the 205 retroviral elements in both us and chimpanzees that sort of correlate to exactly the same place and exactly the same virus, How would you explain how that got there?
Great question. And I heard you ask this question to Kent, and he gave the most logical. And I don't understand why you guys don't see this when you're debating. I mean, especially people who are God, right? Because I'm not even taking a God stand. But if you're debating a God person, all they have to say is God. That's their answer. That's why. I don't think you get that philosophically, right? We're saying that anything that is out of the realm of what we can see on the laws of physics, because something has to come before the laws of physics. So anything operating out of that, they're just using the word God, and you're using the word billions of years, or you're using the word universe or magnetic field, whatever word you use, that's your God. Okay, that's your God. You are religious, that's your God. Magnetic field, I don't know. That's the answer. I believe in what the scientific evidence shows, which is that we're really, really far away from knowing. It looks like things might have evolved like this, but that's on a small scale. That's microevolution. That's I don't believe in macroevolution at all. I believe in every piece of evidence that we can testable, repeatable, right? But macroevolution, we can't see that, we don't know, and it logically doesn't make sense. You asked me, have I ever seen something created? Everything that I see has been created by something. You feel me? Even you know what I mean? I'm like, look, and you know, I made this joke earlier, you feel me? But you know, I don't know if you're an atheist or not, because you know there are some people who are, you know, not atheists, but they're also evolutionists, right? Look, when I get it. When you look, maybe sometimes people look at what their life is like, or they look at themselves in the mirror and they hate it, and so they're mad at God. So they think there can be no God. I'm gonna be honest with you. Me, my life is great. I look great. Everything. I'm like, how can there not be a God? How can somebody not be making my life this fucking good? Like, look at how amazing the world is. Look at how amazing everything just fits together. You just gave me an example of retroviruses that fit perfectly on every animal. Well, one answer could be they all came from the same species. That's one answer. We've never observed it. The other answer could be that somebody intentionally did it. Excuse me. Just like this complicated ass computer I'm talking on. How did this complicated ass computer, which is a lot less complicated than those retroviruses, how did it get here? Through intention. I believe in intention rather than lack of intention. Because if there is no intention at the beginning of the universe, then why was it not always there? So you're either saying that it either at some point started, which has to be intention, God, whatever, creator, universe, whatever word, right? Or you're saying it was always there. You feel me? So that's my position. I hope I made that clear.
Okay, so you have a contradictory position to what you said earlier. You first said that you don't believe in a God, you're not religious, but now you're sort of saying there's got to be something because of how good your life is, how well it all fits together, kind of thing. So those are two contradictory statements.
Let's not strawman my joke.
Yeah, so I don't think you're being truthful on your positions because you're contradicting yourself. The whole question was, how do you explain how they got there? And it seems like your answer is God magicked or did it. Why didn't God do some sort of miracle without having to create viruses to insert to people to make it look like, or whatever creator you believe in? Because creationism is the somebody that believes that a supernatural phenomenon is the cause of life's diversity and the origin of life. So I don't know if you understand what creation is.
I understand, bro. Hey, don't insult my intelligence, brother. I understand just fine. Trust me.
Do you want to look it up? Maybe I don't know.
I don't need to look it up. See, you know why? Because I already fucking read it. All right. This is what you need to understand. Right? Matter of fact, you said a lot. Ask me the question directly. Like, what is your
okay? Well, the whole point is that
I want to say a lot. I want to say a lot.
I've asked sort of how these viruses got in them, and your answer has been very vague. It's been sort of maybe something.
Just one second there, Ross. We'll let him ask his question in its entirety. I know that there might be a build up to the question, but we still have 8 minutes of cross exam. And so if anybody's wondering in the live chat while we're letting a little bit more monologuing going on, it is because we are doing a cross examination as best as we can, under these circumstances, because these guys got a lot to say. So I'm gonna restart my timer here. We got 8 minutes left, and I'll let Mark ask his question.
I'm enjoying it too. I'm enjoying it. You feel me?
Like So you've sort of said that the naturalistic sort of explanation that I proposed is probably the best explanation. You conceded that, but then you say you don't know how a creator would have put them there. So why are you saying that it couldn't be the natural explanation if you don't know what the explanation is?
Well, we're not debating the natural explanation. You feel me? Because in nature, everything has a beginning. Everything has a creator. In nature, it does. We can point to where everything came from. You understand what I'm saying? And it looks to be circular. right? The answer is we don't know. So don't make me pretend like I'm debating science when I'm not. We're having a philosophical discussion. So I appreciate your question because you asked me, how does that make sense? If you see everything and you don't see God intervene right now, but what would make you think that God intervened before if we don't actually see it? I'm saying it's just a philosophical inquiry. It literally is. I'm saying, look, based upon what we see, if there's nothing there, it's hard for me to even conceive how nothing can give birth to all of this. It's really hard for me to even conceive of it. So that's why I'm not religiously believing it. I'm just saying it's most likely that something that as beautiful as what you're looking at right now, right? The world, yourself, you feel me? Like, you're a smart guy. You feel me? You're like, think about how much you reign supreme over these other animals. You're so much smarter than the next animal. You understand what very, very much so. It's almost like endowed. We have not seen anything develop this level of intelligence without endowment. We have altered, right, certain brain activity of chimps and other animals to be more effective. But guess what? Even if you prove in a lab, right, that this is theoretically possible, right? It's theoretically possible for this to happen, right? You still did it in the lab. You still did it. You did it. Somebody created it. So you have to not only prove, right, if you're claiming to be science, but to me, philosophically, what you're saying probably makes sense. Like, I don't believe in everybody's interpretation of God. It's probably not some fucking guy up there waving a wand. I don't necessarily believe in that. I'm sure it's way beyond our comprehension because we can only comprehend the laws of physics, really. It's hard for us to comprehend something outside the laws of physics, you know? So yeah, I only comprehend what's in my bubble. Anything outside of that, I don't postulate on. You guys postulate on it a whole lot, though. You postulate on it a whole lot. And then you try to pretend like, well, if I say I don't know, but I say, well, it just looks like this, even though I'm saying I don't know, people won't really know that I don't know. I'm letting you know that even though you think you're smarter than us, you're not. We hear everything you say, and we're like, oh, so basically you said all that, but basically what you said is you don't know still. You're saying it's most likely, and we can all agree that it's most likely. But don't say you know when you don't. You're not science, all right? So when we get out of the realm of science, before the universe, which has to be before science, because how, nigga, we cannot even explain how the universe was invented with our current laws of science. The Big Bang basically defies all laws of physics. It really does. The Big Bang.
Okay. So I think that's a bit of a frivolous statement. I don't think
I said a lot.
True.
Don't strawman the last point, though. Respond to the last point quickly, and then address the other stuff I said.
I will concede. I am not science. I'll concede that much. Yes. So I don't think I'm smarter than people. You've sort of leveraged a lot of things against me. So sort of ad homing me here. That I've said that I'm smarter than everybody and stuff. I have not. You didn't actually answer any of the question or provide any evidence for this creator. It seems like you're saying that, hey, the parents of something are the creator, therefore creationism, which is a really weird stance to take. So maybe we should go to the other sort of line of evidence that I have, because you don't seem to have anything to challenge sort of the ERV thing, and that's okay. So how would you explain why the fossils are ordered from basal fossils to more complex forms in the order they are in the geological stratum? How would birds be right up the top, whereas it goes to dinosaurs, to more simpler forms of eukaryotes, and then further down? Why is it ordered like that?
Right. Well, I just want to congratulate you on conceding that this is a philosophical debate. You've asked me a philosophical question. We will do that. I'm up 1-0, just so you know, right? It's, you know,
science is a philosophy.
I'm just digging at you. I'm just making a joke.
Yeah,
but
okay.
I want you to understand that what you're asking me right now is a philosophical conversation, and it's the right question. How could you possibly explain this? Use your imagination, right, to explain how this might have happened. That's what you're asking me, right? And I have no problem doing that. But we are having a philosophical debate. This is not a scientific.
Really, I'm asking you what evidence you have to present for your side, which is creationism.
No. There's no science in creation. It's not. I'm not claiming to be science.
Well, if you just let me finish. If you just let me finish.
Hold on there, Ross. We'll let you respond for sure.
Yeah, so I'm holding up my end of the debate by coming in with a lot of evidence and a lot of arguments for evolution being true. What I expected from this debate was to someone to come in and have arguments and evidence for creationism, which is the idea that things were created. So I'm
that's
posing
what I've
you
been
this
doing.
question.
And you try to pretend
on-
like I'm changing it, though. You just conceded. You said creation. The
Yeah,
idea
if I could just
created.
finish, Ross,
But you can use
if
it.
I
You can
could
use
just
it.
finish. So
I know, but you're
what
just
I'm
such a
expecting
liar.
is you to support the idea of creationism. So when you sort of say,
have.
hey, I created my progeny kind of thing, that's what I did. I created that. That isn't
Yeah.
going against evolution. That's completely expected from evolution. But you're sort of
How?
saying,
I created the same species. How is that evolution?
well, it's you do know that the progeny inherited your traits of you.
How is it
and
evolution if
whether
it's the same
mother-
species?
Yep. So I'm explaining. So the progeny inherited the characteristics from both you and the mother with
Yes.
variation, and that is
Yes.
evolution.
With intention.
You even conceded, Ross, if you just let me finish, seriously, you even conceded that microevolution happens. So if it's microevolution, why wouldn't it be
Hold
evolution?
on a second there, Ross. Well, let me respond.
Okay, yeah.
And I just want to, just where this is the last minute of Mark asking questions, that's what we're supposed to be doing here. I will let everybody know that our live chat is back up and running there. It had a little moment, but we're back up and running. So yeah, I'm glad to see you guys are back and lively in there. We are going to start our Q&A. Let's see, how long have we been running now? We got, another 15 odd minutes of open discussion after this cross-examination. So let's keep the ball rolling. And yeah, we'll let Mark ask his final question before we kick it into an open discussion. Thanks everybody for being here.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if okay, gotcha, Ross. So my question is sort of what evidence or arguments are you going to present for your side of the debate tonight to support creationism, the idea that organisms were created fully formed by something?
Yes, good question. Okay, so these are my arguments. Oh, my bad. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you great.
Okay, great. These are my arguments. I'm glad you finally conceded at the end that we're not talking about scientifically whether you know what I mean, things can, you call it evolution, right? You're saying things evolve over time, but really that's just adaptation, right? So I don't give a fuck what you call it, right? You want to argue that, but you're not going to get pushback on me because we observe that, right? So we do observe adaptation, microevolution, whatever word you want to say. But what the position I'm defending, right? The position I'm defending, like you said, is that life, everything we see, it got here by a creator. It got here, something created it. Whatever, Allah, Buddha, I don't care. The universe, billions of years created it. Whatever, something created it. Something had to spawn it. Because if it didn't get created at some point, it would have to have already existed. That's a philosophical argument. That might be over your head, Mark, but I promise an average level thinker can understand what I'm saying right now. If you're in the audience and you think that doesn't make sense philosophically, I dare you to try to come up with a philosophical argument that makes sense for something coming from nothing. I literally, in the beginning of the debate, said that I'm not conceding that it's science. Now, when I do look at science, we can look at all the scientific evidence. I have the same evidence you have, Mark. We can all use Google. Well, I don't use Google, but most people, they use Google Scholar, right? Sure. Anybody can go on Google Scholar and read what their priest wrote in the Bible, all right? Just because you read what a priest wrote in the Bible, that doesn't mean that it's true. It has to be observed, number one. And then it has to be, you have to come up with a hypothesis. Then it has to be experimented on. You have to be able to replicate that experiment too. You can't just do it one time and say, look, I did this experiment in my lab. Nobody else can do it though. I did this one experiment and that means this. No. You have to come up with a simple, easy, observable experiment that we can all do. And you guys haven't done that yet. The things that we do have experiment on, I concede on all that. So I'm not arguing against adaptation or microevolution. I'm arguing that my argument, because you said I don't have any arguments. This is my argument, that even whatever we find scientifically, at some point, it has to be created by something. I mean, like, because everything that we find as of right now, 100% of everything is created. 100% of everything is created. I don't know of anything that, like, we have plenty of vacuum chambers, right, that are sitting there and they're monitoring the electricity and the electrostatics that's in it. Nothing has emerged from those vacuum chambers yet. Nothing has emerged. The longest running experiment is going on right now on E. coli, right? E. coli has not ever turned into anything but E. coli. So even your species evolution, I haven't conceded on that. You haven't shown any species going anywhere. I concede on your definitions of microevolution, which could be adaptation, or at the end of the day, philosophically, you could either say it just happened or somebody did it. I mean, that's what we're dealing with. That's the dichotomy. Did it happen by itself or did somebody do it? That's my argument, Mark. Don't say I don't have an argument because you want to run away and pretend like I don't have an argument because there is no refute to that. What is there other than somebody did it or nobody did it, right? That's what I'm defending. Something did it. I'm not defending that nothing did it. So if you're trying to attack my argument, you have to prove that nothing can do something. Prove nothing can do something. So we've never seen nothing do anything because that's what you're saying, that all of this came from nothing. I'm saying it came from something, whatever you call that something, that's your creator, that's your God, whatever. I don't care. I don't believe in it. I'm just saying it's most likely.
15
Mark?
seconds. We'll kick it into open
Oh,
discussion.
yeah, that's my argument. Don't say I don't have an argument.
So
don't straw man me.
yeah.
That's it.
All right, we're going to kick it into open discussion, everybody, for about 15 to 20 minutes. We're going to just remind
I'd just like to
everybody to
respond
keep
to that
it friendly.
if that's okay.
Please do.
Absolutely. I'm just going to do a little housekeeping and let everybody know we are going to do our Q&A after this. And if you haven't heard, Saturday, September 16th, we're having a live in-person event in Houston, Texas. Grab your tickets in the link below, as well as our speakers will be linked in the description below and including on our podcast. So if you like what you're hearing from either of our speakers, you'll find them at the links below. And Mark, we're going to let you respond to what Ross just said to kick it into our open discussion for the next 15 to 20 minutes.
Please respond to my.
So I don't mind having sort of a philosophical discussion on where it came from, but I'm not hearing any explanation. Nothing has any explanatory power coming out from the creationist side. So it's very weird.
We can get into that.
So the kind of things like Lenski labs, we wouldn't expect them to evolve. It would take a lot more time to speciate, as it were. It's interesting that he does bring up E. coli because the Lenski labs, they did show a evolution to a citrate, be able to feed on citrate when introduced to it. And it sort of said life got here by creation, and then said the universe could have been the creator, but that's just naturalistic processes. That could be evolution. There's no teeth to that statement that you're basically acknowledging that evolution could be true and you don't have any alternative.
I am cheating.
To offer.
That too. I'm cheating. I know that too, though.
You haven't offered any explanation in favor of creationism over evolution.
If I don't know something, why would I pretend like I do?
But that's not an explanation. That's not an explanation. Saying I don't know is a concession that you are ignorant.
Okay.
No, not to be pejorative, that just means that you don't know the answer. That's not if you say why is the car start?
I don't know the answer.
Like, hang on,
why
Ross.
are we talking deeply about that?
All right.
Why are we talking deeply?
Mark, if you can wrap up your point there. I'm sorry, Ross. I'll just
So
you can wrap that up in 10 seconds there. We'll hand it back to Ross.
The car doesn't start. Why is that? And you say, well, I don't know. That's not an explanation of why the car isn't starting. It's just saying, I acknowledge that I have no explanation. So, I mean, thanks, I guess, for conceding that. But
Mark, you're confused. You conceded. You know why the car doesn't start, Mark? Because nobody started it, God damn it. Because there wasn't anybody to do it. That's why it didn't start. That's my point. Anytime something happens, there was a cause. Why didn't the car start? You're trying to pretend like I'm just so inept intellectually. I don't understand the deep words. Cut it out. No, you're not saying anything that deep. All right. Why didn't the car start? Because nobody started it. That's my answer. Oh, how come? Or what happened? How did God do? I don't know. I don't believe in God. I told you at the beginning. I'm not a scientist. I don't believe anything that I can't see through observable experiment. So there's no observable experiment that shows any of this. We both don't know. Don't pretend like I'm the only one who's saying I don't know. You're saying you don't know, but you're just saying it in a longer way. So that way people don't understand you. You think that we're not smart enough to understand because you talk in the British accent. Hello. Sorry. No.
It's Australian, not British.
I know that's why I said British, because it's just
okay. Oh, hilarious. This is sort of the outcome that's coming out from you. So if you want to talk
just because you talk at length, that doesn't mean you're talking over our heads. You're not talking over our heads. You're talking at length. I'm not trying. I don't know. Then you're trying to pretend like I'm wrong for saying I don't know. We both don't know. So now let's move on to the philosophical discussion, because we can talk at length about what makes the most sense, but don't pretend like I'm the only one not bringing science. Science does not know.
So I'm not trying to talk.
Have not proven it.
All right, let's give him a chance to
I'm
respond.
not trying to talk over anybody's head. I'm trying to get my position explained as well as I can. I think that you're sort of leveraging all these accusations about me that I'm somehow trying to sort of make myself superior or use my accent in some way, which is such a weird way.
Keep saying,
Why
I don't understand.
instead of
I don't understand.
actually
I do understand.
accusing people of trying to do this and trying to do that, why don't you actually present some evidence or some arguments or something from your side besides these straw men?
I will, but you won't respond to it. That's why we keep doing it. Every time I present evidence, you run away.
Why would I respond?
Let's try again. Let's try again. Let me present evidence and you respond to it. Okay, fine.
Why would I entertain a straw man?
What straw man? I'm making my argument. I'm not arguing against you. How am I straw manning
something
myself?
From nothing.
How am I straw manning myself? What are you talking about? Are you confused?
No, I'm not confused.
I'm giving you my argument.
From nothing is a straw man of the position that cosmologists take about
Who's cosmologist?
The universe.
Who's cosmologist? I'm not cosmologist. You're arguing against me right now. Attack my arguments. Let me lay my argument out so you can attack it, because you keep accusing me of not having it.
Right. So I'm not saying the universe came from nothing. That's the straw man. I don't know why you don't understand what a straw man is. It's when you're sort of misrepresenting. Hello, Ross.
We'll let him explain.
You have some control issues, mate. You've really got to like settle down and focus on what you're trying to say rather than just ranting. Okay, yeah, sure. So my position isn't that the universe came from nothing. So when you keep saying, how did the universe come from nothing, you are misrepresenting my position on that subject. That is, by definition, a straw man of my position. So it 100% is. How is it not? Probably better.
Let me respond directly to you. This is why it's not misrepresenting your position, because you're lying right now. What you're doing is you're lying. You're saying, let me explain. You're saying,
you're going to tell me what I believe now.
Hold on 1 second there, Mark.
Hold on now. Hold on. Oh, somebody's on hold. All right. I said my position. I'm not even talking about your position. You're trying to pretend like my position is your position right now. Why are you doing that? My position is that.
So you're.
Hold on. I'm not done, brother. All
right, to be fair, you did ask a question there, Ross, but I'll let you continue.
I'm explaining okay, I apologize if I did, but I'm saying that something could not have come from nothing, and you just agreed. You said I'm not saying something cannot come from nothing. Mark, that's my position. Stop saying I'm accusing you of doing that. You're misrepresenting this conversation. You're doing that. I said my position. That's my argument. My argument is that something cannot have come from nothing, and then you turn around and say you're trying to say that I'm saying that. But I didn't say none of that, Mark. I didn't say nothing about you. I said my position. And then you want to accuse me of doing something so you don't have to attack my argument. It's not working, Mark. You're trying to run from my argument. Stop doing it. Attack my argument. How can something come from nothing? Stop lying to the people thinking you're too smart for everybody. You're not. What?
I never said that for a start. So you're just throwing out these accusations. I never said that I'm smarter than anybody. I don't believe that's the case. So this kind of, you think you're smart? No, I don't. So don't tell me what I think. Number two, hey.
Hold on 1 second.
Ryan, could you mute him, please? Thank you.
And then attack my argument.
Mute him.
There, Ross.
So when
you
have a debate and somebody takes a position, I take my position and you're supposed to attack that position. So if my position is not the universe comes from nothing, you attacking your own position, basically saying, hey, it's my position that the universe can't come from nothing. I never said it could. I never said that the universe began with nothing. So you're basically using a straw man of my position to say, hey, you think the universe came from nothing? You can't demonstrate how it did. But I don't think the universe came from nothing. So it makes a nonsensical question. And quite frankly, accusing me of lying when I say, hey, I don't think the universe came from nothing is point.
Yeah. I'm like, look, if you want me, I will never say nothing that I can't substantiate directly.
Okay, so when did I say the universe came from nothing? So when did I say the universe came from nothing? When did I say that?
Mark.
No. You don't get to run away from this. You said that you're attacking my position. When did I say the universe came from nothing?
All right. And we're going to let him respond, and I'm going to put you on mute, Mark.
I didn't say you said that. That's why I called you a liar. Now, because you telling me I said that. I didn't say that. That's why I called you a liar. Now, I said, I believe the universe could not have come from nothing. And then you tried to say that I said, no, you have to attack my argument, Mark, which you still haven't done. Why won't you attack my argument? Because that's my only argument. The universe could not have come from nothing. There had to be a creator. This is creation versus evolution, Mark.
All right, back on mute you go, and back over to Mark.
Okay, so there's another possibility, and the one that I take the position of is that it is a many worlds hypothesis. I already went through this, so obviously you weren't listening. That the universe at its early stages were atemporal, so it didn't have to come from anything. It's eternal. So how do you deal with that? You're not going to.
What? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Okay. Okay, so you're saying I don't believe that it was created by something. I believe in something else. And this is a good conversation, Mark, because it's philosophical now. You understand? So I agree. Now, I think that philosophically, maybe you can make a good case, right? That the laws of physics maybe just have always existed, right? Or maybe you can make a good case. Remember, we're imagining now. We're not talking about science, Mark, right? We're imagining what could it possibly be. You know what? It's just hard for me to imagine that something doesn't have a beginning, because no matter how you slice it, that argument you're making right now has to lead to the circular notion of time, life, everything. Everything has to just always have begun. And that's just hard to wrap my mind around. And I'd be happy to wrap my mind around it if there's evidence for that, but there's none. So right now we're just philosophically postulating. And I think that you're a smart guy. I think that's a smart postulation. I don't think that it's dumb that people think, you're just using the cop out of God or creator. You're right. It is a cop out. I don't think that's dumb either, though, to say that I don't understand something. I don't think that's dumb. You know what I mean? So, like I said, I'm like, I don't want to misrepresent you, but don't misrepresent me.
Where did the creator come from?
That's a great question, man. We don't know. We could postulate on it philosophically, but
When
now we're
did
in the realm of
creator
philosophy.
come from?
This is philosophy.
So
huh?
now you're into infinite regress.
Yeah, that's why they use the word God, because they can't explain it. And I don't agree with the word God. That's why I just say creator, because you don't know what the attributes are. Like, we use God because we want to make everything like us. We want to think that God is human and he thinks like we don't have no idea, right? God, or the concept of what created us, it could be so far beyond our understanding that I'm like, now we're just talking about, because your answer is, well, the metaphysical, right? The multiple universes, 1,000, right? And I'm not saying that it's unlikely, right? Because it's very possible that if you look at mathematics, right, the chance of Earth and our universe being this perfect is so slim to none that they have to come up with something like multiverse theory to explain why our universe is perfect, right? The cosmic microwave background, it explains why there's the exact density that our universe needs to be for the laws of gravity to work exactly like they're supposed to, so we can have life exactly what we are, right? How did that happen? It seems mathematically impossible. You know how they deal with it? Theoretically, mathematically, they say, you know what? It probably happened an infinite number of times, and we're living in the one where it went right. And that's a great philosophy.
We actually got to a creationist argument. Fine-tuning, congratulations, you've lucked out and landed on a creationist argument for once. Okay, so fine-tuning. So we don't know what the probability of this universe forming is, because we've got a sample size of exactly one. There's only one universe, so we can't tell probabilities. We have to make Bayesian analysis to say, hey, it's unlikely if these set of conditions are true. It is unlikely, but we don't even know whether the constraints that we have in this universe was very probable. And maybe it worked on a scale of, hey, this other universe is improbable. This one's probable. We don't know how it got here. So
totally agree. Totally agree.
So, but then you cannot say that it's highly improbable to form this universe. You can't make those two statements.
I can. If we're saying we don't know, how are you telling me what I can and can't say now? See, that's a little crazy. That's why I call you religious, because you just admitted you don't know, and then you're trying to tell me like you know. Don't tell me what I can postulate, because this is a philosophical conversation now. We don't know, so don't say you can't say. No, I can say.
Okay.
I can do all that.
You can say that you don't know the conditions for the universe forming, and you can say, hey, it's highly improbable that the conditions would cause the universe to form like this. But that is intellectually inconsistent. You're basically saying that, hey, on one side, it's probable, and I know that it's probable.
I didn't say I know. I never used those words.
The conditions. You made the fine-tuning argument. I don't know if your memory's gone or something, but
I
you
made the
just
argument,
made
but I
it.
didn't say that I know. I'm telling you what the data says. And then from the data,
What data?
the cosmic microwave background.
What data do you have on these other universes to give you a statistical probability of it forming exactly as this universe?
Hold on. I didn't say, I'm saying that that's what the people who believe that there is no God or creator, they're trying to postulate why something as perfect as our universe happened when mathematically it's improbable. I'm not saying
it's not argument. Perfect.
I'm not. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, down to the
No.
Really?
No.
You're disagreeing with your own religion now.
No. Multiple cosmologists have pointed out that the variables could be changed so that there's a much more stable version of the universe in a better way. So that's patently untrue.
There's no proof of that. What you just said. There's no proof of that.
Yeah, there is.
There is. You want to lock it in? I mean,
well, that's what cosmologists have said.
What experiment did they do? Hold on. What experiment did they do that proved that? Because that was
how do you know under different constraints another universe couldn't form? How do you know that?
It's a philosophical postulation. You claimed you knew for sure.
Okay, well, mine's a philosophical postulation as well.
We agree. That was my first sentence in the whole debate.
But you say, to be honest with you, nothing about this is to do with evolution.
It has to do with evolution versus creation. To me,
it's not. Creationism is what you're supposed to be debating.
Whatever word you want to put on it, don't change the fucking subject. What I'm saying is that something had to arouse from something else. It's hard for me to philosophically wrap my mind around that. So if you have a good argument that can say, okay, think about it like this. Blah, 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 blah,
so I'm just gonna interject for a second. I'm not here to debate cosmology. I'm here to debate evolution versus creationism. So your attempt to deflect to something else. No, it isn't. It's biological evolution.
The Big Bang. So you're denouncing the Big Bang.
No, the Big Bang is not evolution. What are you talking about?
Okay. So all right. So then we agree then. All right. So you don't agree with the Big Bang because to me, I'm like, it's either the Big Bang or something did it, right? Like you're strawmanning me, and guess what?
You don't even know the subject of the debate. This is absolutely terrible, Ross.
Why are you insulting my intelligence? I don't know what creation versus evolution means.
Did I say anything about you? Hang on. Did I say anything about your intelligence?
You said I don't know what the subject of the debate is.
Here, Ross,
you said I don't know what the subject is.
You don't.
We'll give you the last word.
Okay, so you're my intelligence now, and you're an idiot.
That is not.
I never give you the last word,
said
Ross.
that.
All right. We'll hand it over to you, Ross. We're going to let you have the last word before we kick it into the Q&A. It's been a really fiery one here tonight, everybody. So I hope you're having fun. I see lots of you bouncing around in the live chat there. Lots of fans, lots of...
Somebody in the comments let me know if I'm retarded. I'm sorry.
All right, let's try to avoid anything that could get us demonetized.
No.
Especially in my country.
Look, I just want to say something. I never called you stupid. I never said that you were unintelligent.
You did it
I just said you
with a British accent. You did it with a British accent, so it sounds better. Hello.
Okay, Ross.
All right.
All I said is you don't know the topic of the debate, which is creationism. Maybe you should look up creationism and find out what it is that you're supposed to be taking the position of.
Just because somebody wrote a religion called creationism, that doesn't mean
it's not a religion.
I have to believe in that. That doesn't mean that yes, it is. That doesn't mean I have to believe in it. All right. So I believe in what I believe in. I take the creation position. I'm explaining my position to you. If you want to attack those arguments, go get those people, drag them in here. You can attack their dumbass arguments. You can't do nothing with my arguments. You know why?
The only argument I've heard from you is fine-tuning.
I'm not talking about anything I don't know for sure. I'm pointing to scientific evidence, agreeing with all the scientists. We don't know for sure how the cosmology was made. So because we don't know, it's a philosophical debate. That's my position. And you don't want to attack that. You know why? Because you can't. It's ironclad.
All right, we're going to let Mark respond, and we'll kick it back to you, Ross, and then we'll get to Q&A.
Yeah, so this is creationism versus evolution, which is sort of on the origin of life, whether it was created as is by some sort of creator or whether it evolved over time, but sort of unable to debate the scientific consensus. Ross is sort of fleeing back to, well, you've got to explain every facet of reality before you can get to evolution, which is a common sort of it's a way to sort of Mott and Bailey your position to sort of say, hey, I'm not going to actually debate what your position is. I'm going to debate this fake position that I'm going to make up and sort of attribute to you. So yeah, really, really bad, Ross. Really bad. I just got to say that this is creationism versus evolution.
Can I respond directly to that?
Creationism entails certain things.
Can I respond directly to that?
All right, we'll let you respond, and then we're going to kick it into the Q&A, and thank you everybody for being here.
Last thing on that. You know what? I will concede on one thing, right? So you got 1 point. Really, I'm up like 50-1, right? Because you literally said a bunch of times, all right, this is my philosophy. All right, you agree. This is my philosophy. All right. Okay, so this is Lee Cronin, right? Origin of Life expert. Quote, Origin of Life research is a scam, unquote. Quote, I do not care whether the atmosphere is oxidizing or reducing. We have no way of knowing. We can look at the fossil records and geological records and ask those questions, unquote. Quote, in the past, chemistry looks to have been simpler. We have seen no evidence of complex chemistry emerging for life, unquote. Last one, quote, no, I would agree with you. There is no evidence about what sequence of small molecules was there at the beginning of the Earth. Oh, and guess what? The interviewer, because this is a video I watched of him, a researcher, he asked, oh, so we don't know how it happened, but the evidence on Earth says that life on Earth happened very quickly after the late heavy bombardment. That is evidence in the fossil records. Lee Cronin responds, those are not contestable. Those are not contestable.
I want to stand up for Lee Cronin.
I can't debate the scientific consensus. I'm quoting the researchers.
Can we mute
Why
him,
are you disagreeing with the researchers?
Just 1 second there.
Please.
You're a religious man.
So I want to stand up for Lee Cronin because sort of this kind of quote mining is sort of what we see a lot from these kind of creationists. That actually, that was a Twitter where he said that it was a scam, and in the interview he said, "Excuse me, could we mute
there, Ross?" Yeah,
Ross. So in the interview, he actually said, yes, I was talking tongue in cheek. And the reason why he said he was doing it was trying to motivate the origin of life researchers, because Lee Cronin isn't an origin of life researcher. He's an artificial life researcher. What he's doing is trying to replicate life in a lab, not to find out where it comes from. So he isn't calling his entire field a scam. He said he was speaking tongue-in-cheek. He's quote-mined a lot as saying this. And luckily, abiogenesis, or the origin of life, is not evolution. And this is where Ross is doing the bait and switch. He's saying, hey, we're going to debate evolution, but I'm going to leverage all of these other things that we don't know about to say, hey, I'm correct. It would have been really nice to get some sort of arguments against evolution instead of whatever Ross decides to strawman this time around. So yeah.
All right. Dude. We're gonna keep this going as long as you guys want to have the open discussion. I do want to let you guys know that we were.
Yeah, I think it's about time.
But
about time for Q&A.
Yeah, let's.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that I'm quote mining, but there's no way to misinterpret. We don't know. We don't, like. Why do you think you're so smart that we can?
Was he talking about evolution?
We didn't misinterpret that. We don't know what happened.
Was he talking about evolution?
I was not. I will concede.
Was he talking about evolution? It's a very simple question. He was talking about the beginning
of the universe. How it was created.
Then he's not talking about evolution.
He's talking about creationism. You're right. He's talking about my point. I know. I'm not attacking your argument, Mark. I'm not attacking.
Lee Cronin wasn't saying that it was created.
I'm strengthening mine with evidence, scientific evidence.
You should be ashamed of yourself for misquoting these people. No. You should be ashamed of yourself. These people work very hard.
You're a religious man. They don't even believe what you're preaching.
I'm not.
These are people who do experiments, not you.
Let's
you don't
move.
Do experiments. They do experiments. Why are you disagreeing with them?
That's terrible.
Lee
Cronin's a very, very esteemed scientist. Like, you just sort of quote mining him and misrepresenting his
no way to misrepresent.
Absolutely disgusting. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Oh yeah, you should be ashamed. Yeah. You're a religious man peddling Scientology. You're a Scientologist.
All right. Well, let's.
I don't believe in Scientology.
You're Tom Cruise.
You guys can't.
I don't think you know what.
It says right here in my Bible. It says in my Bible, if you don't believe me, then you're dumb.
You guys can't help but egg each other on. Just one more time. Let's get to that Q&A, everybody.
So weird.
Pastor Reid.
All right.
Pastor Reid,
I'm gonna behave as the overlord or the god of this
hey,
conversation.
cut me off whenever you need to. I won't take it personal.
I was gonna say I don't want to put you both on like the mass
Oh, it's
beat
good,
and
it's
just
good,
talk
it's
to our show here. Let everybody know we're going to go into our Q&A. Make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe, share this out in those contentious spaces where you have discussions like this. And we're gonna kick it on over to our first super chat coming in from Manga Fan Dan for $5. What if you're both wrong and the universe is really a 3D holographic projection from a black hole on the bottom of the cosmic coconut?
Very possible. Super possible. I love simulation theory because it strengthens this whole thing. Like, we don't know, but it looks like, I mean, maybe even a video game, right? Wow. How are people with all the evidence you're saying exists postulating that we might be living in the video game? It's because we don't know. So whoever wrote that, very wise man. Stick with that line of thinking. If you don't know, keep questioning it until you know for sure. Don't be like Mark. Don't be religious. All right. I hate religion.
We would have been able to pass that on to the next question, but he called you out there a little bit, Mark, at the last second. So go ahead.
Yeah, there's nothing religious about methodological naturalism. It is a process in which we check to see. Hello, are you? His mouth's on autopilot. So methodological naturalism is a process that we use, and it's supposed to be challenged. There's nothing religious about it. It's all empirically based. It's all evidence based. There's nothing religious about it. There's no popes. There's no priests. There's no God. There's no worship. There's nothing like that. So the whole idea that's religious is just ludicrous. And plus, you know, this religion, as he calls it, seems to have given his computer and been able to provide him with all of these devices, which he'll happily use, but still call it a religion. So obviously it's working. And I just love that, you know, religion is a pejorative nowadays. But yeah, the whole idea that simulation theory is true.
Stop lying on the engineers and electricians, right? They invent stuff, not you guys. Scientists don't invent shit. Electricians,
can we mute
engineers,
him, please?
these are the people that do that.
All right, one
Stop
second.
lying on them.
We're gonna let Mark wrap up his point. We'll definitely let you respond. Don't worry, for sure.
Yeah, you will have the last word. Like so hard solipsism is one of those questions we don't know the answer to. Like, there's no even way to know if there is an answer to the question. So the whole idea of simulation theory, if simulation theory is true and we are in a simulation, then evolution is the simulated process, but it's no less true in virtue of that simulation and in the constraints of that simulation that it is for if it was the real world. I'd love to hear Ross's how he overcomes hard solipsism, because if he wants a philosophical conversation, hard solipsism is really at the cutting edge.
That's really what I want. I really want the philosophical conversation, and we could do that another time because we're already at the end. But I just want to say, all right, that listen, we don't know, right? I'm never going to pretend like I know something when I don't. And if we could all just agree on that, then at some point we can actually start making progress. The minute that we start pretending like we know shit and we don't even know it, then it's halted because we think we know the answer and we don't. And that's what you religious zealots do, you know. And you know, last thing, like I said, I will concede you do have 1 point, so it's the score is like 51-1, I think. You're right. I haven't been attacking your arguments, Mark. You're right. I have not. You know why? Because every time you say something, I pretty much agree with it. Right? Because I get it. You're like, you know what? I have this piece of evidence, so I'm going to bring this evidence up because you can't refute that. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead that evidence all the way to my conclusion. I'm not even dealing with that. Every time you say something, I'm like, you're right, Mark. You're right. All I'm doing is strengthening my argument. And you keep strawmanning me, right? Ironically, saying that, oh, you're trying to say that I'm saying this. Mark, I'm not saying nothing about what you're saying, Mark. I'm not saying anything about you and your point. I'm just giving argument after argument after argument for my point. And you are so distraught by it that you have to, it's like, oh, wait, well, you're doing this. You want to talk about the conversation. You don't even want to give more information. You're like, well, you're talking like this. You're talking like that. That's exactly what my girl does to me. She doesn't have anything to say, so she talks about how I'm saying it. So that way, it's like a filibuster technique. Confuse everybody, and that hopefully they forget what his point was. All I did was offer argument after argument, point after point on why I believe what I believe. I did not attack your argument.
I think it's a you problem. I think it's a you problem then. If me and your girlfriend agree, then it's probably a you problem, Ross.
That means that you're a woman, Mark. You agree with a woman? Okay. Right. You agree with a woman who has a period every month. She's chemically imbalanced once a month, and you agree with her? Okay. That's why Let me relax. You're gonna get me to a whole nother conversation, all right?
I agree with her. You say a lot without actually making. But
Well,
I
I mean,
agree
look,
with that.
look. Most feminine people do agree with her.
All right, let's continue on. We got another question coming in here. Dr. Dino, $5 to Mark. Welp, a lot of evidence in Ross's opening for you to refute, Mark. Good luck to Ross. If you want to change people's minds, this ain't it, mate.
Great
Any thoughts?
response. Great response. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. You know why? Because I am not religious. I'm not a religious zealot. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a preacher. I do not preach. I am not Mark. I am asking questions. That's it. I'm actually just a historian, right? And we all know that most of history is a lie. Just like what Mark is trying to postulate from his little strand of evidence is a lie. If you bring up one piece of evidence like, oh, you know what? There's a bloody knife on the ground. That means that he killed him just because there's a bloody knife there. You're right. The bloody knife is the evidence that Mark is presenting. But the bloody knife does not conclude that there's only one answer. And if it doesn't conclude there's only one answer, it's not evidence. And Mark agrees with that. And I didn't get into any of the videos that I have of him, but I have you right here on video, Mark, saying that something cannot be considered evidence unless it only concludes one position. And while your position might be most likely, it's not conclusive. It is not conclusive. If you say that, you're lying. You're disagreeing with scientific consensus. There is no scientific consensus about conclusivity when it comes to my position, which is creation. I'm talking about the origin of the universe, not microevolution or adaptation, whatever you want to call it. You feel me? So I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm not religious. If you think I should be, then maybe you're religious. You want to convince people of stuff. That's not what scientists do. Scientists don't convince people of stuff. You know what they do? They run experiments. They observe. Where did you observe a monkey turn into a human? You didn't. Evolution dies right there. Because guess what? If you don't have observation, you don't have experiment. You didn't observe it. You theoretically imagined it, like SpongeBob. You came from a sponge.
Yeah, so following Ross's chain of thought that if you have to directly observe things for anything, then the only way you could catch a murderer is by directly observing him killing people. Luckily,
Science,
we don't
brother,
have to
science.
just, excuse me, Ross.
Hold on 1 second there, Ross.
Ross.
That's forensics. We're talking about science.
Yeah, so yeah, and forensics is scientific. So
scientific?
the whole
1 second there, Ross. We'll let.
Oh, I thought
Mark
you muted me.
respond.
My bad. I thought you muted me.
All right, we'll put you on mute there, and we'll
no
let Mark.
control. The whole idea is that, okay, well, we've got a bloody knife, but luckily I brought up, like, if we have DNA evidence for it, if we have the forensics come back that, hey, their fingerprints are on it, and that, hey, they were at the scene because we found a hair follicle, we've got DNA evidence putting them where they shouldn't be. That is strong evidence that they actually did it. Very strong evidence.
Right.
And luckily
Unless I find reasonable doubt, though, which
dude, could you stop unmuting yourself, like, seriously? We have, and luckily I brought literal DNA evidence to show that evolution is true. So none of the objections sort of saying, oh, well, I don't know, or I don't know this, that is not any way conflicting with the evidence that I've presented.
Right. And now right? It's nice that you're saying that, but again, you sound just like my pastor. You're like, look, I read it, and look at this book that I'm reading from. This is what you're telling me. Look, I brought all these pages. I brought all these books and explain the experiment and connect the dots between what you're saying and for sure, we came from monkeys. Or, like I said, because I know you don't have anything with abiogenesis, you lost that already, right? So we're speaking philosophically, looking at the evidence, scientific evidence. All right, maybe it could point to that, but it's not conclusive yet. Since you show the evidence, it's so easy to understand, right? Explain it to me. How did that conclude just for sure we came from monkeys? Because there's tons of reasonable doubt there. The other scientists agree with me. Next question.
All right, no thoughts over there. We'll continue on the live chat there. All right, keep those questions coming in, everybody, and we'll keep the conversation rolling. All right, this one coming in from Mike Maker for $4.99. Mark, what year did the monkey stop evolving into a human?
Woo! Great question.
Millions and millions of years ago. So what we've got to distinguish between for this is the difference between sort of old world monkeys or the more basal simian forms and modern monkeys. So when you're talking about modern monkeys, we never evolved from modern monkeys. We split up and went our own ways. So when you're talking about primates, you're really talking about apes as well. So we didn't evolve from monkeys, we evolved from apes, and we still are apes. That's what we still are. There is no defining characteristic of an ape that we do not possess. If you and also I just want to point out that the failure to explain how we have sort of 200 and we're sort of 99 to 98, depending how you read the DNA, similarity with chimpanzees, and how we have the same endogenous retroviruses in the same positions and the same virus in 205 instances. One would be so unlikely to be impossible. 205 is overwhelming evidence.
That, to me, that's more evidence of a creator, because you're saying it just happened mathematically, randomly. That's even crazier than saying that somebody did it, because it's so specialized, it's so perfect. I hope everybody's listening. Every time, like, right? Imagine that this happened in a million years, God, right? Whatever, evolution, God. You haven't observed it. If you don't observe it, it's not science yet, sir. And I'm not saying you're wrong, because you might be right. But I don't like you masquerading in the name of science when you haven't observed it and you haven't experimented on it. How can anybody disagree with that?
Yeah, so we don't have to directly observe stuff to see that it happens. For instance, I've never directly observed.
For it to be science, you do.
I've never directly observed a mountain being raised, but we know from geological movements of plate tectonics that mountains are getting higher and higher. There's this whole idea that we can observe the effects of it. We've never observed sort of the behavior of electrons, but what we can do is make tests on them and see what that leads us to believe. The whole idea is that we see these effects and we see these outcomes and we make inferences based upon them. And this is the theory of evolution. And I do notice that he's addressed none of what I've presented today. None of the evidence that's been brought up has actually been addressed in any way. Just this bait and switch with, oh, well, let's go to cosmology, let's go to abiogenesis, let's run away to this other position. Right. So I think I'll leave it there.
I do concede to that. So 51-2 now. You're right, because most of the stuff that you're saying, it's like the bloody knife. You're like, but there's this, and I'm like,
I'm sure you are the most accurate scorekeeper for your own side. Yeah, no, I'm sure that score.
One more time.
I'm sure that score is accurate. I'm sure that if it checked, it is perfectly accurate.
I'm the most unbiased person you're ever gonna. I'm the most unbiased person on the planet.
Let's continue on.
Sure, and modest too.
Dr. Dino, no, that's me. I am the most modest. You know what? Let's have a moment.
I am the most modest.
I promise you, I'm more unbiased than you. I promise.
I said modest.
I don't believe anything. I still can see your position a little bit, and you're pretty unfair. You're probably the third most unfair moderator. You feel me?
Oh,
you're pretty.
You. No, I don't mean to be unfair. It's just that when you talk, the Mark's audio cuts off, and
I'm not even talking about that. No. I talk way too much. So I know that.
I was gonna say, am I getting called out here? I was gonna say, what's happening?
No. I'm just making a joke.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
I'm the most neutral person you're ever gonna meet. Like, I'm not religious. I don't believe in anything. I believe in pure science. Yes, you do have to observe something to be science. We've never observed the mountains grow. That's why it's geology and not fucking science. We can't make a scientific inference about what the.
Okay, some of my geologist friends are going to be really mad right now.
Just because you use the word science, just because you use the word, that don't make it true. Yeah, I'm going to give you a perfect example of this. I'm a black dude, right, in America, and motherfuckers will have you walking around here thinking that racism is a problem for black people. They're not even black. You got white people around here saying like, "Oh, racism is holding black people down." Let me finish. No, I'm trying to make a point. Listen, just because you can say racism, that don't mean that racism actually exists. A person who's really going through it, me, a black person in America, I can give you the direct evidence to whether or not the concept you're talking about exists. So if you're talking science, this is experimentation. Just because I say geological science or atmospheric science, whatever word, just because I say science, it has to follow the scientific method. Scientific method.
Geology.
That's why they created that, to keep science pure from religious people like you.
Geology does follow the scientific method.
Oh, does it?
Yes.
So how do we know that? So how do we know for sure what's causing the mountains to move then? If we can't experiment on it, how do we know?
Yeah, because we
Direct
can.
Question. Direct question. How do we know if we can't experiment?
Yeah, because we can actually measure the outcomes that the plate tectonic shifting actually makes, and we can line up, like for instance, the way that the western coast of Africa meshes with the eastern coast of South America, and
Allegedly.
Okay, well, I mean, as I said, I've got some friends that are geologists that are going to be pretty mad right now. But
your pastor's going to be hot, right? Oh, my pastor's going to be so mad about this because he read last week on his geological Bible, and then he preached to me and told me what his geological Bible told him. So now I'm here peddling it to you as science.
So many people spend their lives studying a topic. They spend their lives.
My dad spends his life studying the Bible. My dad spends his life studying the Bible.
Yeah, no, I get that, but we're talking about people that sort of have to present things as empirically
no disrespect
true.
to them, but fuck them. If they don't have experiments to go with what they're saying,
I don't know how that could be anything but disrespectful.
It is disrespect. Where are the experiments? It is disrespect. Where are the experiments? I don't take authority. I'm not appealing to authority ever, and under no circumstances. That's all you're doing today. One big appeal to authority. Now you want to straw man me, but really your argument is appeal to authority.
No,
I'm not attacking your appeal to authority.
The scientific process is what we're relying on. It's not an authority. I'm not saying, hey,
right.
this person said it. So
let's just hold on there a second, Ross. We're going to move on to the next question just because we got lots of questions coming in, and I know it's going to spark similar, if not, like I said, you're going to hold on to those points, I'm sure, based on what we've heard tonight. Dr. Dino, $2, debaters, and I'm going to give you each 1 minute to expound on this. Please define science and evidence. So, Mark, I'll start with you. 30 seconds. Science definition.
Yeah, so science is the methodological naturalism is the process of how we, based upon empiricism and naturalism, that we investigate the natural world around us based upon observation, questions, hypothesis with falsification, to theory, and then publishing, peer review, and replication of that study. So that's, in essence, there are a few different scientific methods, but they all generally follow that same process.
All right. And
you also wanted
definition for evidence. 30 seconds. Definition of evidence.
Yeah, evidence is a body of facts presented in a way that reaches one conclusion above all others to support that case. I would say is evidence.
Hey, I will respect you, Mark. You're a consistent man. And I was about to play a video of you saying exactly that. Right? I literally have it up right here, but you already said it for me. All right. Evidence has to point to one conclusion. One conclusion. How many conclusions, Mark? One. It can't be, oh, you know what? 99% want this one, but there's still 1% reasonable doubt for this one. If there's 1%, then it's not conclusive to one.
All right, it's your turn now, Ross. We're gonna kick it over to you.
I thought I was going.
No, you don't get to escape this one. This is for both of you. All right, Dr. Dino asks, debaters, please define. So I'm gonna give you 30 seconds to define.
We didn't get definitions for.
He's asking me right now.
No, that's what I'm asking you.
He's asking me right now.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah, I'm asking him right now.
Yeah,
sorry,
I zoned out for a second.
That's all right. So please define science for us there, Ross.
Great question. Science is a word. Right? A word, right? Words are symbols that point to things that we're supposed to be able to experience in real life. Okay. So I don't adhere to words and their definition just because other people say it. That's why I respect the scientific method. All right. Because it was created just for this, to weed out all the rhetoric. All right. That's what all this is. It's rhetoric. All right. We look at something and then we talk about it a certain way. The scientific method is the only thing that we can fall back on. Observation, experimentation.
That's time there. Right. And secondly, what would be your definition for evidence? 30 seconds on that.
I'm deferring to Mark. And he's contradicting himself right now because I was going to play that. Evidence has to conclude one thing. Nothing that he's given concludes only one thing. He doesn't think that, and neither do the scientists that actually collected the evidence. I've been listening. Look, I can pull up videos of them saying, "You saying I'm taking them out of context." That makes me more mad than anything because I'm like, dude, I could pull up the whole video of them describing how they don't know.
5 seconds.
They don't know.
Oh, okay. All right. That was right at the end there. Maybe I should do a warning at 10 seconds just in case you haven't expounded everything and make sure you get to the end of your time there. The Crawdaddy for the Crawdaddy 029 for $5. Modern day debate. Congrats for holding a debate where one side isn't complete willful ignorance like flat earth or the pro R word anti-choice / consent. Well, thank you, the Crawdaddy. We appreciate it.
Can I respond to that real quick, dude? I just want to say real quick, dude, I almost became a flat earther watching your debates, Mark. You are the straw man king. I don't know if you are actually a flat earther and you're trying to psyop, right, and act like you're not and just debate in a way that just straw man's a whole position and ignores all the evidence. So that way it's like they look so good against you. And I'm not even a flat earther, but I'm like, man, God damn it. Like
10 seconds.
That should be the easiest thing. That should be the easiest thing to debate. And look, man, I was gonna say, look, those flat earthers be wrecking you, dog.
All right, Mark, he's calling you out. How do you feel about the flat earth debates you've had? And then I'll give you 30 seconds
I'm not
respond.
a flat earther, but I almost became one.
So I actually feel pretty good about my flat earth debates. I think that a lot of the questions I asked are unresolved. And, you know, I think that somebody that's sort of done so poorly shouldn't really be taking shots at other people. Because, this has been an absolute shocker. I mean, it's funny that the question sort of said, oh, one side isn't complete ignorance, but one side of this debate, and that's Ross's side, has been advocating complete ignorance. Like, I don't believe anything outside.
That's
Excuse
honesty.
Me, Ross.
That's honesty.
Somebody saying that they don't, and I'll quote Ross verbatim, that he doesn't pay any consideration to anything outside of his bubble. If that isn't pure ignorance, I don't know what is.
You're lying again. I said that I don't believe anything that I can't see through observation and scientific evidence. Observation, hypothesis, right? Experimentation, theory.
Well, let's all have a moment of amicability on the things that we can see. What is everybody having for beverages tonight?
Well, I started with coffee because it's morning, and then water. But you know, I wonder if Ross actually believes that Australia exists because he hasn't seen it.
A moment of amicability as I raise a glass. I think I saw some Miller Lite there earlier, Ross.
Oh, yeah.
Cheers to you, buddy.
Come on,
we'll have a moment there, and cheers.
I don't want to promote Miller.
But you know. You're promoting. Yeah, you're on brand. Let's continue on there, fellas, as I'm trying to create a little bit of lightheartedness. All right, so. This one coming in from the thanks the Crawdaddy for your nice compliment there. Coffee Mom, thanks to see you again. $1.99. Who created the desert? Why is it different than a bike?
That's a good question, right? I'm like, that's the question that we're asking. You feel me? I'm not advocating ignorance. I'm acknowledging it because we don't know. That's my point. I don't like people that say they know when they don't know. I grew up in a church. I hate those people. You know why? Because they think they know shit that they don't know, and they force it on you. Just like this Scientologist right here. He wants to force his doctrine on you because he read it, or his pastor read it, or somebody else read it. They read it. They told you. And now you have to believe it, or you're stupid. Isn't that like disrespectful to tell me that we both read something, we both got different conclusions from it? Why am I stupid? Because I have a different conclusion for reading the same thing that you read. You're a religious zealot. That's what religious people do. They call you stupid because you don't think the same thing they think. That's fucking ridiculous. That's fucking.
No, you're terrible.
I'm sorry. That's ridiculous.
You're absolutely.
Nobody's dumb just because they don't see things the way you see it.
You're absolutely terrible. Nobody.
I'm terrible. Oh.
Yeah. What you're saying is terrible. Like nobody said you were stupid. The whole idea that
just because you say it in a British accent and it sounds nice doesn't mean you're not calling me stupid.
It's Australian.
I know, but I'm going to keep saying British because it's
so
funny.
You know that something is incorrect, yet you'll say it anyway.
Yes, I'm trying to be offensive.
That sort of sums you up in a nutshell, really, doesn't it?
You see the name of my channel? Real Offended. Real Offended. You understand? You know why? Because it's impossible for you to offend me. But I know you're going to get offended. You're going to get offended because I call you religious, or I do this, or I say you're not, or I say you're from England. You're going to get mad about that because you're emotional about the stuff that you read. I'm not emotional about anything. I look at it, I see what the conclusion tells me, I go with it. There's no emotions behind it.
I'm sorry. So the guy doing what I can only describe for the last hour and a bit as an unhinged rant is accusing me of being the emotional one.
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because this is how I really am. I'm really this aggressive and mean. Like if we were in the wild, like imagine we were
emotional.
In the wild. No, look, if we're in the wild, right, and there's no
emotional.
No, not emotional.
You can say
aggressive.
it. You can say it. You're emotional.
Aggressive. You feel me?
No,
let me
emotional.
explain you what I mean. If we were in the wild, right,
15
and there
seconds
was no laws, and there was no laws or nothing, right, and we all just had to kill for our food, like, I wouldn't be doing no arguing with all these people. I'm a civilized man because we're in a civilized society. But if we were just animals, I'd just be killing shit and taking what I want. I'm that kind of guy. I'm aggressive. I'm the top dog. I'm the apex predator. You feel me? But I'm not
I'd be
afraid,
communicating
I'm not afraid
with
to admit when I'm ignorant, though. But
I would be communicating with my fellow man and organizing tactics.
They hate when people point out how ignorant they are. And that's important.
You're just
I don't
emotional.
mind being ignorant if I don't know something.
Let's cut
it's
this
okay,
off here.
Sweetie. You can be emotional.
All right. No,
relax.
All right. Let's keep it rolling here and try to keep it chill to a certain degree, everybody. And I hope you're all chill. And
trust me, I got a few more levels.
You got a few more levels. Well,
I would love to see that. The level up from this unhinged sort of crazy yelling.
Honestly,
just cascade of just
wait. Let's see if we can get the let's see if we can do a level up here.
Howling that we hear come from
I want to give him a compliment. I want to say, honestly, I see you as a pretty respectful person, Mark, and that's why I do like this conversation because you're great to bounce ideas off. I think you're a very intelligent guy.
I wish I could return that compliment. I wish I could return that compliment. I really wish I could.
Right. Well, and I was literally just going to say, you're respectful for the most part until you start thinking that you're smarter than everybody. And then you're exactly what you look like. Egghead.
All right.
You're exactly what the fuck you look like. And I understand why you don't believe in God. Look at me. How can you not believe in God looking at this?
All right, we're going to move to the next chat or else
what's going on with me?
I'm going to start singing some Queen if you guys don't let me move to the next.
Why has God cursed me like this?
Save me. All right, Silo side for Truce and S. $4.99. The laws of physics are descriptive, not prescriptive. So it makes no sense to say the laws of physics already existed before things it can act on.
I agree with that. I think that adds to the problem of now, how did it get there? I agreed 100% with that comment. And I want to know. We don't have an answer. I've looked at all the scientific data, everything that Mark has presented today, right? Everything that I've read leading up to this, none of it is conclusive. So there's still a big question mark there. I don't think anybody can disagree with that.
All right. Let's continue on to the next super chat there and keep them coming in, and we'll keep the conversation rolling. Let's see here. I got to scroll back up as I was checking in on our live chat, making sure you're all behaving yourself. Analyzing avatars for $10. Ross, I grew up highly religious too. I don't think Mark is religious. How can we tell who's correct?
Great question. I mean, this is not a scientific question, right? It's a philosophical question, right? How can we tell? We won't really know because it's opinions. So we can deliberate on it. We can talk about it. What do you think? What do I think? My definition of religion is this. First of all, the Bible and every book that we read that is not directly giving data on an experiment is a philosophical book. The Bible is just a philosophical book. It's a historical record, but it's also a philosophical book. And we didn't get to talk about the flood today. I did prepare some stuff for that. Maybe we could do that at another time because I did want to go into the Bible a little bit. But it's a philosophical book. If you believe in it, that's your philosophy. That's fine. The minute that you start saying, "Oh, you have to believe me," or you're stupid if you don't believe me, or you're this if you don't believe me, now we're in the realm of religion. You're believing stuff that doesn't have conclusive evidence for it, and then you're trying to force it on me. That's crazy.
Thoughts on that, Mark?
Wars have been started. And I detest that. You feel me? I detest religion.
Yeah, so looking at the way we can tell what is real and what isn't is methodology, or the study of what actually works to basically examine reality and find out what is true and what aligns with reality and what doesn't. For the track record, the scientific methods are the best way we have of telling what is real from what is not real. And its track record is unsurpassed. It's responsible for just about every single piece of technology we have today, whether that be sound systems, cars, airplanes, all that kind of thing. So there is no other way that even approaches the scientific methods in order to gauge what is real and what is not. Maybe there is a better way. Maybe we should just leave it to what we believe. But unfortunately, science is esteemed because it keeps producing results. If you've got a better way than the scientific method to produce results, I would highly encourage you to come forward with it. But do be warned, you're going to have to prove that it is a more effective methodology than science is.
All right, close this out. 30 seconds there, Ross.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't that commenter ask, how do we know whether or not you're religious? Wasn't that the question? How do we know whether or not Mark is religious?
I'll clarify here. They said that they grew up highly religious. And they said, I do not think Mark is religious.
How do we know, right?
How do you know who's correct? So how do we know whether this super
Mark is
chat is
religious
correct,
correct,
or whether you're correct, Ross?
Yeah. Well, I didn't hear Mark address that. I want to know, how do we know whether or not you're religious or not, Mark?
We use the most reliable.
tell?
I don't think they're asking that. I think they're saying, how do we know who is
I misunderstood
correct?
it. My bad. I misunderstood.
Well, I mean,
they're saying
how
their
do
claim.
I know I'm not?
Yeah, I was to say their
religious?
claim, from what I'm gathering, is that Mark is not religious based on
Right.
their religious experiment or
And he said,
experience.
how do we
Sorry,
know?
and they're saying, how do we know who's correct? They're saying he's not religious. You're saying he is religious.
And Mark,
who's
and Mark
correct?
said
You were
that.
the super chatter.
And I want to know what Mark thinks. How do we know you're not religious?
Well,
Mark?
I think that when somebody says they're not religious, like the only way you
Supposed to
would
believe
know
them?
is to know what my mind is and what my mind says, which you obviously don't know. So
That's
the
all right.
idea that you know my mind better than me is kind of ludicrous.
I just asked, how do we know whether or not you're religious?
Yeah, so the reason whether or not I'm religious. So the whole idea of religion is it gives doctrines in order to sort of you have to adhere to, and
like the
that
papers
is,
you brought up today. Yeah, like the
Ross,
papers you brought up.
seriously, man, can you be quiet?
Dude, you
for
were
like
talking
2
for a
seconds?
long time off one simple question, dog. This is not postulation hour. How do we know you're religious?
I'm talking for a long time.
Let's
man.
move on. Jesus Christ.
I'm talking for a long time. So
Yes. And it's boring.
religion.
We'll let Mark wrap up there, Ross. I'm sorry, but we're going to let Mark
sorry.
wrap up this point.
Oh,
So-
dog,
Yeah, I've
listening
heard you
hard.
just rant
I'm
and
listening
rant for ages
second
during
there,
this
Ross.
debate. So you can wait 2 seconds while I finish up.
We'll put on in a minute, so we know for sure.
Religion basically doesn't want to be challenged. It basically is doctrine that is the unquestioning truth of a belief, whether that be Scientology, whether it be Christianity. And that's okay. Like, I've got nothing so bad to say about that. It's just that science isn't a religion. It expects to be challenged. It wants to be challenged. It needs to be challenged. But we believe that challenge when it actually presents some evidence. So Ross sort of abjectly failed on that tonight. So we don't just believe that our theories are wrong because somebody has objections. They have to demonstrate that under the scientific method. But it welcomes the challenge.
Right. You don't welcome the challenge. You haven't demonstrated anything with the scientific method. And you do act like you're smarter than people just because they don't agree with you. That's what you've been doing this whole time. You read something, I've read it too, and I have a different conclusion than you do. I'm saying it's not conclusive. Other scientists agree with me. And you're saying, you're religious.
Next question coming in.
I act like myself. That's all. I'm not acting like
You act
anything.
like
I'm
a
just saying
deeply
myself.
religious man, a priest, a priestess,
I don't even know what that
a
means.
Catholic.
I hope we all act as we are, and we're not trying to be characters tonight. Big Bad Mama
Yeah, I
coming
hope so.
in for $5. Ross, why do
Yes.
human hands, horse legs, bat wings, and whale flippers have similar bone structure despite their different functions?
Great question. Now you're asking a why question, right? If I'm not mistaken, that's philosophical because science doesn't really deal with why; they deal with how, right? It's observation. Okay, so if you want to ask me why, I don't know. So philosophically, it makes sense that maybe they all are like that because they develop from a common ancestor, maybe, right? But they all have different functions. Okay, so maybe somebody is designing something and their designs are similar because it came from the same person. Both explanations are philosophically possible. Now, if you're asking me a scientific question, the scientific answer is we don't know. And anybody who says that they do is a liar. They're a scientific priest. Just because you put science in front of your Bible, that doesn't mean it's not a Bible. I can start printing Bibles with science on the front. Does it become science? What if I say it in a British accent? Nope. Still just as non-conclusive. All right. Non-conclusive.
All right, let's move on to our next super chatter, and there's still some more firing in from the live feed. Keep them coming in. We'll keep having a discussion, and this discussion is a creation versus evolution. So give that like button a little smash. Why don't you? What else are you smashing?
Well, apparently it's abiogenesis and origin of the universe and everything, but creationism, apparently.
You mean if you hit that smash button? Creation. Oh my goodness! Hitting the smash button is literally procreating. Is what Mark I think just was expressing. No, I'm kidding. All right, All right, I was making a joke, and then
just because you put different words on it, though, Mark, that doesn't mean that we're not dealing with creation. Those are my evidences. That's my argument for creation. Abiogenesis. Right. Those are my arguments, sir.
Let's carry on. Davgar says,
I don't have any arguments because they're there.
All right, Ross, just 1 second there. All right. Dave Gar says for $2, your science, Mark, please stop straw manning S is what he says.
It's all right. It's all right. It's I feel God is speaking through him right now.
Did Dave go? Okay. I think sort of saying I am science is a weird way to put it. It's very strange.
By the way, you did kept saying you're not science. I never accused you of being science, and if I did, it was a misspeak. I mean, what I really mean by that is the thing that you're trying to defend claims to have scientific basis. As a matter of fact, you've been claiming that the whole time. You've been saying you have evidence. You've presented evidence. That evidence isn't conclusive, though. That evidence is not conclusive. Okay, so if you claim to be science, no, it's not. You're lying. If you claim to be science, then you fall under that scrutiny, brother.
No, I'm not. And you appealed to the scientific consensus tonight, which, again, the scientific consensus, overwhelming scientific consensus is behind evolution. So you lose on that score too.
Well, I didn't appeal to scientific consensus from my argument. I did that to destroy yours, actually, because my argument is anti-consensus. I don't believe in any consensus. Scientific, biblical, none of that. I only believe in experiments, observations. You're not going to tell me that something that I don't see with my own eyes is happening and get me to believe it without showing it to me. I don't have faith like that. All right. You have faith. I do not.
That was your,
right, that was 20 seconds there, Mark.
Argument, sort of, that scientific consensus on abiogenesis.
No,
scientific.
That wasn't my argument. That wasn't my argument.
Ross,
last 20 seconds
Ross,
to Mark.
Scientific consensus on the origin of the universe was that we don't know. And yeah, I agree that that's the scientific consensus, and the scientific consensus on evolution is that it's true, overwhelmingly so. And the evidence is 100%, well, not 100%.
That was a huge leap you just took.
But
you took a huge leap.
Ross, is there something wrong with you? Like, seriously?
There's nothing wrong. I'm listening to what you're saying, and that's the problem. I'm listening to what you're saying. And I'm responding.
Could we mute him when I'm responding? He can't control. He's got no self-control.
Dog, you want the postulate filibuster to confuse everybody. Stop trying to filibuster. That's what you're doing. You're like, hello, pulpit. Hello. If I say it like this, it means.
All right, we're gonna let Mark close this one out.
Find this guy.
15 seconds. Over to you, Mark.
Yeah, so I didn't bring up the scientific consensus. Ross did, and it was to do with this other stuff. But evolution, overwhelmingly, the scientific consensus is that evolution is true. There's overwhelming evidence. We are more sure of evolution than we are about sort of gravitational theory, for instance. We're more sure of evolution.
That's a fact. Yeah, that is a fact.
All right, that's there.
That's killing your argument even worse. So I don't even want to do you like that. But the reality is that You don't know. And then you took a big leap to, okay, but we do. Okay, no. You don't know how it began. Okay. So then when you postulate, you know for sure. That's why I brought in consensus to destroy that, because you're using that as your argument. You're saying scientific consensus is this. So I brought that up to say, oh, no, it's not. I can bring up all these other scientists who disagree with you. So that's by definition not consensus. That's why I brought that up. That's not my argument. My argument is I don't believe any consensus, period.
Who was the question to?
This was for you, Mark,
This was for me, so I'll finish off.
20 seconds there, Mark. We're moving up.
Yeah, so this is the straw man. But evolution, when I'm talking about evolution, I'm talking about biological evolution. I gave the definitions. Ross didn't give any definitions for evolution. In fact, he poorly defined everything. So when I'm talking about evolution, I'm talking about biological evolution explains the diversity of life. I'm not talking about abiogenesis. But if I'd known that was a debate on the abiogenesis, I would have prepared some more on amyloid world and some other hypotheses.
You would have lost.
Cover it, but Ross, what's wrong with you, man?
Let's move on to the next question.
You're that upset?
All right, next question.
Not upsetting. It's just weird.
All right, let's not get sidetracked.
Weird.
This is how men talk every day in real life. We don't sit and listen to other people give 5-minute dissertations. In real life, when we have conversations, when you're saying something and I hear it, I might respond directly. I'm not just going to cut you off and start going on my own dissertation. I might respond directly and then let you finish.
Well, there has been a fair bit of
That's how humans talk. Are you not aware of that, Mark? Are you weird? Do you have friends, Mark? All right. I talk to women all day and they cut me off fucking all day. All right. So don't say this is not how people talk.
So maybe it's a you problem.
Let's carry on there, because
all right? We have conversations with people.
In these spaces, and I don't like employing it, and I feel like the day that I finally drop the hammer, everyone's gonna say, Ryan, you were very justified, because I've been very patient. I don't like putting people on mute. But I think the day comes where I really get irate. Nobody's going to question that. So I'm just going to ask you guys to behave yourselves, just because I am getting a little bit frustrated with the amount of cutting off that's going on here when we're trying to wrap up some of these super chats, because we got a lot coming in. So Robin Webster, this is a fan compliment, $2. Very impressed with your patience, Mark. So that is just a fan super chat. We appreciate those. It's better than diss tracks. LJ for $1.99. Mark thinks the ISS is traveling 17,500 miles per hour. Sheep.
Yeah, so it kind of is. There's footage from it. Some new footage was released recently. Yeah, it is. It's in orbit. I don't know what's so. I mean, it's a big number, sure, but big numbers aren't scary.
I mean, I feel it. I tend to believe you, Mark, because you sound so certain. But that's it, though. It would just be a belief. Oh, I know it is, because it is. Okay, thanks, Pastor.
All of the footage from the ISS helps that belief along, right? Like you have seen.
I saw The Boys last night, and I saw lasers come through a man's eye. I saw lasers come through a man's eye. It looks so real.
Yeah. But the pictures from the ISS, there's people, have examined them. They are real, and I don't know what kind of conspiracy thing you're in, why we would have to lie about there being an ISS or space travel or anything like that. I don't know why that would have to be a thing. It seems weird.
All right, we'll give you a chance to respond.
That isn't the topic.
We'll give you a chance to respond, but
I'm just
a little off topic. So 30
seems
seconds.
Weird. It seems weird. Why would they lie? Ultimately, what he's saying in a very smart British accent is, I'm not sure. I'm believing what my pastor told me. My pastor told me this. I believe him. He's worked his whole life. It must be true. And you can mute me anytime, just so you know. I will not take it personal, all right? Because I don't control when you know what I mean? So mute me at any time. I will never take it personal. Back to you.
That's all good. Yeah,
let's get to wrap up. Questions for me? Yeah, okay. So it's not only just sort of what people tell me, it's also that I've worked in satellite internet for calibrating sort of the satellite dishes for satellite transmission of internet. So it's that I've got a background that touched upon the space industry, as it touches a lot of industries. And you talk to these professionals that work in those industries, and there's this whole idea that it's this big conspiracy of all these professionals in multiple different space agencies, multiple astronomers, is just it's so far-fetched. And add to that all of the evidence of the pictures we see. Yes, we have movies and stuff, but they're quite obviously CG'd. The ISS pictures are not. They're very reliable. We've seen the launches. We've seen all of this kind of stuff. There's a mountain of evidence for space travel. And I don't know why this is veered into space travel in the first place. It seems like I cannot get away from flat Earth no matter how hard I try, even though flat Earth was kind of disproved in the days of ancient Greece. So, there's that.
Yeah, I'm not a flat earther, by the way. I don't agree.
Can we move on? Because that was my close.
I'm not gonna argue against any of that. Yeah.
Let's continue on there. Gotta make sure I hit my 48V for my phantom power. Make sure I can be heard. Samuel for $2 Canadian. Mark, evolution is not exclusive of creation.
Woo!
Thoughts?
Okay, so creationism is sort of usually, I don't know what Ross's definition is, but usually it's basically saying that.
All right, let's let Ross give his definition if that's fine, and then we'll let you carry on. So you asked him his definition for
what's
what?
Your definition?
I agree.
Creationism.
Okay.
I agree with what that last comment said, and I have video of you right here, Mark, saying that exact same thing. Even if you could prove evolution, still doesn't disprove creation. Still doesn't disprove creating.
So that's not the definition of creationism. So creationism under the normative definition. Yeah, but it's not even a definition.
All right.
I'm muting. Yeah,
okay, thank you. I was going to say, if we're not going to get a definition, that's fine. We'll carry on.
Yeah, we're not going to. We're not going to get a definition of anything. So, like creationism, the normative definition, how it's used, it basically explains the diversity of life by something creating kinds of animals or separately, sort of, apes and humans and cows as differing things that were never had a common ancestor. That's the normative definition of creationism. So creationism isn't compatible with the theory of evolution, because the theory says that everything came from one origin, one place. So it basically diversified. But the way that I've said it is that evolution doesn't prove a creator didn't create the first organism, right? So then we're out of evolution, and we're talking about abiogenesis. So at that point, you're not talking about evolution anymore. So the idea that creationism is compatible with evolution isn't correct. But there could have been a creator that started the entire process of evolution rolling. Right. But if those two, like basically as Ross is saying, like this isn't, if they aren't against one another, then what's Ross debating?
What are you debating? That's my point, Mark.
Evolution.
You already. I'm up 170
evolution versus creationism.
to 2. I'm up 170 to 2. You just agreed with me. You agreed with my whole.
Okay. All right. I'm going to inject here. Sorry, Ross.
Why do you keep saying that I did horrible in this debate when you agreed with everything that I said, Mark? Mark,
right. I'm injecting here, Ross. I don't want to put you on mute, and I will. I'm on my YouTube screen. I don't want to pop over to the Zoom chat.
You're totally fine.
So Coffee Mom doesn't feel like we've answered her question, and Coffee Mom's been, hanging out since I started here at Modern Day Debate, and I really want to do the right thing and respect Coffee Mom's question. They say, Ryan, you missed my question. I need to find out who created the desert and why it's different than a bicycle.
I don't know who it's directed at, but like I said the first time, right? Like I said the first time,
a natural creation versus like a blue gram, like it's like a blue diagram of a created thing is what I think they're trying to get to.
So like we technically don't know who created the bicycle, right? Or the desert. But if we came up to it, right? If we came up to it and we just found it there, would it make more philosophical sense that nothing made it or that something made it? Something or nothing? Like he's saying, or it's or not. He's not saying this, right? But if you disagree with my definition of creation, I don't know what the religion of creationism, you know what I mean? But what Mark has conceded to, that's what I agree on. You know what I mean? So if you come up to that and you what are you going to naturally think? Did something create it or did nothing? Is it more crazy to think that God created man? Or is it more crazy to think that sand created man, or the rock or lightning or whatever is your God? Whatever your God is, insert it there. Okay? Something created it. And you conceded to that already. So I'm not even arguing with you at this point. I'm just trying to teach the people. All right? There's a creator, whatever it is. Okay?
Okay. Let's move
Could
on.
I just interject something for Coffee Mum? It's a good question. This is
Sure.
do you mind?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Coffee
Okay.
Mom wanted some expounding.
I'm listening.
and I
I'm
wanted
listening.
to
I'm
respect
listening.
that.
I'm listening.
So Coffee Mum, though basically this is the watchmaker argument. Like if you come across something that obviously is man-made, then how can you believe that that isn't man-made and it's trying to project? But the whole point about creationism, it also thinks that the desert was created too. So what differentiates the desert and all the grains of sand that were created by the bicycle that was created? Why does that one stand out to you? It's because the bicycle's man-made and the desert is naturally occurring. So one of those is a object that is made, and the other isn't necessarily created. So if they were both created, then you should see no difference between the two. The sand dune is exactly the same as the bike, but we do see a difference because one was created and one is naturally occurring.
Well, we don't know that the other one was not created. And then I also want to, and I don't want this to devolve, because I personally believe that the deserts and all that in Africa, to me, right, I think that that's the best explanation for that is a flood, is a global flood. High sedimentary layers in abnormal places. And I know we were supposed to get into it a little bit, but I think to me, if I'm just postulating, I'm guessing that those deserts were put there by a flood.
All right, I'm going to give Mark a chance to respond to that. I did forget to
answer. No, the question was for him.
And it was just a guess. It's just a guess.
I thought that would be something you might want to sink your teeth into, because I've seen other debates.
Well, it was. He's done a lot of work because that's such a long conversation. Like we're going to get into a lot of geological evidence, and then we're going to interpret the evidence. Yeah, and then we're going to interpret it though. We're going to look at the evidence, but then there's that rhetoric point, right? Where now, what do you see? And what do you see? And what do you see?
You're right. You're opening up a can of worms here. So I'm going to answer. I'm going to, maybe that could be something down the road, but I'm going to answer the most important question, which is what I'm having tonight, which is some lumberjack. I forgot to answer that question. We all answered what we were having: coffee, water, Miller Lite. I got something called King Street Lumberjack because I was out doing chainsaw work this morning, because that's how we make our living in Nova Scotia, is chainsawing things. And then I went and screamed at a jam, and I got here 10 minutes before the debate began. And cheers, everybody. Let's continue on. Chakaseki, sorry, $4.99. Has Ross heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Yes. Yes, people think, I mean, this describes Mark perfectly. People think that they're so smart that they can't postulate that something that they don't understand could exist because they don't understand it. That's Mark. You think you're so smart that if I say something or if I disagree with you, well, I must be dumb because you think about it this way. That's you. Maybe she was giving me as an alley-oop to call that to Mark. Maybe I don't know whose side she was on. But I'm like, look, I admit when I don't know all the time. That's the opposite of Dunning-Kruger.
Okay, you want to continue on from there, Mark?
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
No, I got nothing to say.
All right. Well, let's continue on from there. I'm just saying thanks to Coffee Mom, but you know what? I'm just going to go back to our live chat. Thanks, Coffee Mom, for your super chat, and I'm glad that we had a chance to expound on it. You're welcome, and I appreciate you being here. And also thank you to our last super chatter, Chakaseki, sorry. So Swampy Pubes, oh my goodness, what is this? Is this like a morning after a humid day? What's going on with your name, bud? Swampy Pubes for $9.99. Ross, putting aside your lack of arguments for your position, have you genuinely ever attempted to work on your self-control at all? I'd highly recommend it if not.
Great question. I do.
We'll add hominy so you can, it's up to you if you want to answer.
I mean, it's just an observation. I mean, they're looking at me, and I don't think anything personal. I do deal with it, right? Because it's relevant when it comes to the women that I have in my life, like dealing with my mom and all that kind of stuff. But I do want to make this very, very important point, right? I'm not with all, you know, I'm not with other people trying to define what I'm supposed to be as a person, as a human being, as a man. And I'm sure a lot of people listening to this agree with that. You know what I mean? So you can have your definition of a man or yourself or human being, what that's supposed to be, and I have mine. My definition of a man, whether you like this or not, right? I'm a historian. I look at what is real, what has happened, and I make the best inference from that. As a man, the number one thing that defines a man is the capacity for violence. You understand what I'm saying? Violence. All right. The countries you live in, the companies you work for, all these people maintain their power in the world because they're not afraid to exercise violence and aggressiveness over you. All right. So you're afraid because you think people are supposed to be this, you're supposed to be controlled. I'm not supposed to be controlled. I'm supposed to be controlled when I decide. When I'm in perfect control right now. I'm in the control that I decide for myself. I act exactly like me all the time. And nobody's going to tell me to be quiet, to stop talking ever. I tell me what to do. All right. I tell me what to do. The government, nobody tells me what to do. You guys can bow down to other people. I don't. I'm an aggressive male. And I say whatever I want to say when I want to say it. There's nobody above me that tells me to stop. I tell other people to stop. That's why I'm a man. That's why I control my domain. That's why buildings are made. That's why internets have been created, because men take control. That's what we do. And I don't give a fuck about what anybody thinks. And I appreciate your comment.
Except for when moderator mutes. I was just in a joke there. I was going to say, except for when the moderator puts someone on mute.
I appreciate that comment. I respect everybody to be who they are.
All right, let's move on. Big Thang Flying Wayne says for $5, you got to say it with that much jaw emphasis because it's just a big thang. All right, so
big thang.
Ross, you come from a woman, but are better than a woman. Please explain. Dig that hole for me. Soy boy, they say at the end. Well, it's been spicy, so I will let that fly. Call you soy boy. Am I gonna? All right, I think that's a bit of a trope
for the record,
here. So they say, go ahead.
My bad. Go ahead. I'll let you finish, Ross.
No, I was just going to repeat the question. You come from a woman, but are better than a woman. Please explain. Dig that hole for me.
Great question. I've never said I'm better than a woman. Okay, if I'm on a basketball team and then Michael Jordan's on my team, right? He might be a better basketball player. He's not a better person. He might be more valuable on the team. He's not better. I'm not better than a bum just because I'm not a bum. I have money. Am I better than people that don't have money? No. I do have more money than them, right? I'm stronger than women. I'm a much more in-depth critical thinker than every woman pretty much on the planet. I would love to meet one. If there's a woman out there that can think critically without being emotional about what is being talked about, then I would love for you to come show me that you can think more critically than a man. I've never, ever seen that in my life because women are designed to deal with children. And that's I can't deal with children. I have a son. I can only bring myself to the mindset to be able to have the patience to deal with a kid for 30 minutes to an hour. And then I have to go back to being a man. I have to go outside and work with chainsaws. You understand what I have to go cut trees down and do all this aggressive shit because I'm a man. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not saying I'm better. I'm much different than a woman. There are things that I bring to the table that they don't bring. And every woman on the planet knows that. That's why they want women. That's why they want men who are taller. They want men who are stronger, right? Because they want men who are better than them at those certain things. We're not better people. I'm stronger, taller, and I think better. That's all I'm postulating. I'm not better than you just because you're a woman, just because you think I'm a soy boy. I know you want that for yourself, but trust me, I don't drink anything with soy in it. All right. For the record, I'm not sure if that's what you meant. That I'm full of soy. I'm drinking a lot of my food, but no, there's no soy in my food.
I was going to say, trying to drag me in with the chainsaw example there. I was going to say, now hold on.
well, I'm just saying, look, this is what we do as men. Could a woman take that chainsaw and do what you did? Very few of them could. And if they could, they're an outlier.
I would love to expound on the type of woman that my mother is,
or
my wife, but I won't because,
your wife doesn't do it, as you're saying?
Oh no, I won't. Exactly. I won't. Yeah, no, she.
Or should she?
I'm not saying, oh no, I'm saying I'm not going to get into it because Yeah, my wife's
She doesn't like that
she's an
opinion.
awesome lady, and she has no problem trying out just about anything. And my mom, my
I
mother is
respect that about. I do respect that.
my
Yeah.
mother is intense. Now that you've gotten me into it, my mother's intense. She's an electrician, a
Right.
carpenter, anything.
Man,
She's
man.
yeah. Anyways, I won't get into it, but yeah, I was just kind of
Just a quick comment on that. Like I said, I love all the women in the world, and I think that our species really is just women. I don't want to get into this long conversation, but men, we're just put there to protect women. If you really look at what we do and what our life is supposed to be, right? Women, they keep our species going. We're put here with all the gifts and the tools to keep them alive, protect them. The most important thing on this planet is women. There is no, yeah.
let's let's move on to our next example here and our next question. Just because I didn't want to get too sidetracked there, but I did want to make a slight call out and just say, Mom, you're awesome. And so is my wife. They're great people. So Dr. Dino says $2. Stay away from my rocks, Ross. Fossils too. Thoughts on that?
I wish we could have got into fossils today because fossils are a huge proof that there was probably a global flood. I know you're not going to argue that fossils have to be covered by sediment quickly. All right, so there's only a few options once we deal with that, right? Fossils don't develop just naturally, right? Because animals die every day; they don't fossilize. Things are fossilized when they're covered by sediment quickly. What brings sediment that quick? I'm not saying that I know for sure, but I'm saying we can look at what our options are. We can say what's most likely. If there's evidence for floods in most local places, it's not that far-fetched to postulate that there might be a global flood. There's evidence for flood everywhere. Well, I don't think there was a flood everywhere. They all had their separate local floods. All right, potato. God damn it.
So the whole thing is that I brought up fossils in my opening, and I went back to fossils with my questions, and Ross didn't touch it with a 10-foot barge pole. He didn't have anything to say about the fossils, didn't have any evidence to offer of why the fossils are in the systematic way that they are, from most complex to basal, going downwards through the stratigraphic layers. So it's not like I didn't bring up fossils, it's just Ross didn't want to go there. So the global flood, it didn't happen. I'm not saying that fast sedimentation doesn't happen. Of course it happens, but that's a far cry. Just because floods happened somewhere on Earth doesn't mean that floods happened everywhere on Earth at the same time. Enough to cover mountains is a bit ridiculous, and we've got a lot of evidence against that.
Did I lie about fossils? I'm sorry. You keep saying I did address the fossil. Did I just lie? Was I wrong about how fossils are created?
The why the fossils are ordered in the way they are. Did you have an explanation?
No. Nobody has an explanation. You don't. Nobody has one.
Well, yeah, I do.
Well, you have an imagination. SpongeBob, right? Yeah, you think
okay. Well, it's an explanation.
You have evidence.
I mean, you can argue whether the explanation is correct, but at least I have an explanation.
I mean, okay, I agree on that. Your explanation might be correct, but it's not scientifically correct. You know what I mean? And you know what? I'm willing to concede on that. 115-3. You got 3 points.
All right, let's continue on.
You're at 50-something last count.
Let's carry on there, fellas. Sydney Raptor for $2. Mark, can you answer me without a bizarre interruption? I think it's more of an ad hom. I gotta read these. I scrolled up and I should read these before I say them. But Sydney Raptor, you had your huzzah. I said it out loud.
Thanks, John.
Fly on
yes,
now.
and I was interrupted in answering you, so there's the answer to your question.
Well, let's carry on, fellows. Carl Hardy for €4.99. Ross, what are the 4 mechanisms of evolution? To critique evolution, you must first understand it. This is biology 101. So what are the 4 mechanisms of evolution by the theory there?
All right, I want to deal with your ridiculous claim. In order to critique something, you have to know everything about it. That doesn't follow any logical thinking. What are you talking about? If I am, first of all, I'm giving arguments for my position. I don't really care all that much about trying to break apart his philosophy, because it's a philosophy at the end of the day. He can have that philosophy. I'm not mad at his philosophy. I'm telling you why I think something has to, at some point, be created. Now, if you're saying I have to know everything about evolution to debunk it, well, that's where you're wrong. I'm not debunking evolution. And even if I was debunking, I don't have to know everything about it to debunk one part. If I find one thing in your story that's a lie or that's not true, or if you have a whole story and you 99% of it is right, then I say, okay, well, what happened at the end? And you say, well, I don't know. The conclusion is you don't know. All right. So no, I don't have to have evidence to debunk something. And I'm not even trying to debunk it. I'm telling you why I believe it's impossible to imagine a universe without a creator, life without a creator, anything without a creator. I can't imagine that. That's my argument. I didn't spend a lot of time, you're right, trying to debunk his weird scientific religious arguments, because they're religious arguments. I read something in the book and this is my opinion on it. I'm not going to argue Mark's opinion. That's his opinion.
All right. Let's carry on there, fellas.
So the 4 elements.
Okay.
I had to look up the last one, actually. It's natural selection, mutation, genetic drift, and the one I had to look up was gene flow, of course, was the last one. So
thank you, Mark.
Those are the 4 elements.
Appreciate that.
All right. I didn't know if you were going to expound from there.
No.
I was doing ASMR over here. All right. Let's continue on as I slowly and sensationally pour out my beer. All right. Snuff Hoover for $5. Mark, good job holding it down with this guy. Ross, with all sincerity, look into RTS. What is that? Oh, man. How did I just say something terrible?
I thought he was going to say look into the mirror, and so I'm just going to respond to that.
What
Sir,
is
I look in the mirror every day. I look in the mirror every day. I'm very happy with what I see. Very, very happy. My life is great, and like I said earlier,
Real-time
maybe
strategy?
you're supposed to be calm, right? Maybe you're supposed to be controlled. Me, I'm not a controlled man. I'm still an animal. I'm a human animal. Mark thinks we came from apes. Sure, I'll give Mark that. I'm still an ape, Mark. I'm an ape. I'm aggressive. You feel me? Nothing can stop me when I'm
I agree.
Anything.
Yeah, just still an ape, yeah. As are we all.
Amen.
Amen. A moment of agreement. How much would we appreciate that at the end of our live stream here? I shouldn't say we're at the end. We have a few more super chats to go. Keep them coming in because we're going to wrap it up soon. Conrad for $2 says, good job, Ross. So you got a fan out there, Ross. He's happy with what you've presented tonight. And we appreciate those fan super chats.
I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm just a truth seeker. I'm a historian, technically. I went to school, did my bachelor's in political science. So I love looking at history and taking apart all the lies. So I'm just a truth seeker. If you're a truth seeker like me, then you should understand what I'm saying. I just want to find the truth, and I'm not going to believe people that tell me they have it, So that's pretty much how that goes. Anybody who disagrees with that, if you have truth to give me, if you have evidence that I haven't seen, I'm at Real Offended. I'm at Real Offended on YouTube and Instagram. Send me the evidence. I will look at it and respond right to you. I'm gonna respond right to you. I have no problem.
Well, you heard it there, fellas. Ross will respond right to you if you get a hold of him on his social media, which we will tag in our modern day debate description here and on our podcasts, along with Mark Reid.
You do have to be interesting, though. You can't just send me a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, be interesting. Don't be boring like normies. Big Thang Flying Wayne says for $5, shouting and overspeaking equals emotional. You don't let others speak because you don't have confidence in your words. Which debater am I talking about?
He's talking to me. Right. What? Oh, you don't even know. See, that's hilarious. Mark thinks that it's been so one-sided, just me interrupting, and he doesn't even know for sure. Or are you being sarcastic? Well, either way, I personally, like I said, where I come from a family of pretty much all boys. And so I grew up in a house, very rough, very aggressive, yelling, you know what I mean? So to me, that's not really an emotional place. When I get emotional, I'm very quiet and somber and calculative, you know what I mean? But I'm aggressive though. So you guys confuse emotion with aggression,
Do we have direct evidence of you being quiet, somber?
Sure. What? Right? Not right this second, but I can give you evidence. You know what I mean? We can have a conversation. Even especially in the beginning of the debate. If you're speaking about something, right, and you're just laying, if you're being a professor, basically, you're just teaching, you're just giving your opinion. I'll listen to your opinion all day. I'll listen to what you think and how you think and how you got to that conclusion. I think it's very interesting. I think you're a very smart guy. I'm happy that I've had a chance to pick your brain. But if people are mischaracterizing me, or if they're saying something about, you know what I mean, like, or you're saying, oh, you're saying this or this, that, and the third, or I then, like I said, I'm very carnal in my nature. I'm very volatile. You know what I mean? So once I go, I'm just there because that's my natural state of being. I grew up, fighting and playing basketball all day. So when I'm calm, it's almost a natural state of being for me because I'm used to spending 12 hours playing basketball, lifting weights, fighting, doing this, that, and the third. So my definition of what being a human is, being a man is different than your guys. To you guys, maybe you grew up playing video games a lot, right? So to you, sitting down in one place means that you're doing what you're supposed to do as a human. Not for me, because I wasn't able to watch TV as a kid. I wasn't even able to be in the house. So I feel weird when I sit down for too long because that's just the way I was raised. I was raised outside. So it's just there are different perspectives on how men are supposed to operate. You know what I mean? And, look, what works for you works for you. What works for me definitely works for me.
All right, let's carry on there. The Unlucky Legume for $10. Ross, I feel like your points would be better received if you would refrain from talking over Mark and mocking his accent. I feel that sort of behavior undermines your points.
I agree 100%.
Alrighty.
And my bad, last thing. And I only started mocking him after he started insulting my intelligence a few times. It was slick. Like, he didn't say you're stupid, but he's like, oh, you don't understand it, or you don't. I'm like, just tell me your opinion. Don't tell me why I don't understand it. Explain it to me if I don't understand it. Make it plain. You know what I mean? So when people do that to me, I feel like they're insulting my intelligence. Then I start getting real offensive. Hence my name of my channel.
I never insulted anybody's intelligence, and just because somebody doesn't understand something has no comment on their intelligence. There's many things that I don't understand. Just the other day, we were talking about the Trinity and how I don't understand how that works. Like, I don't understand it. So that's not a comment on anybody's intelligence. It's just a lack of understanding. The problem is every time that I did try to explain it, I was sort of interrupted, and that's the problem, that I can't actually get to explaining things because I'm just interrupted all the time. So and sort of this whole idea that I would explain what my position is, and you'd sort of just go back to the same arguments is a bit of a problem. But that's okay. I mean, yeah, I would agree with the comment.
We have a fundamental disagreement on that. I personally felt like, even though you might think you never said that I don't understand it, right? Because right now you said, if I say I don't understand something, then I don't understand it. Well, that's fine. You can say you don't understand it. Don't tell me what I don't understand, though. And you did say that. You like, well, you don't understand this. Well, don't tell me what I don't understand. That's insulting somebody's intelligence. And you might not have realized you said it. Might have been a miss. You know what I mean? But if you say I don't understand, if you're saying you like Mark doesn't understand, if Mark is saying Mark doesn't understand something, that's totally fine. But Mark cannot tell Ross what he does not understand. That's insulting Ross's intelligence. It is.
How is that insulting your intelligence?
Because you don't see how telling somebody.
No.
So if we both read something and you say, well, I think that means this, and I say, well, I think it means that, and you say, well, you just don't understand it. You're saying you're smart. You think you're smarter than me. You think your understanding is better or more correct or more accurate, whatever. It's a semantic, but you are insulting my intelligence by thinking I'm not as intelligent as you. And trust me, I
am saying.
I hope you understand what I'm saying. Hell no.
No, I'm saying, I am 100% saying that my understanding of this subject is better than yours.
All right, so that's insulting my intelligence. What I'm saying. You're wrong.
Well, that's got nothing to do with intelligence. That's to do with
intel, being able to look at information and deduce what the information is telling you. You're saying you can deduce better than me when you look at these scientific readings. No, you cannot. You cannot look at these scientific experiments and deduce what's going on better than I can. No, you can't. You can't even understand a simple philosophical argument. It took you a whole hour to concede that, you know what, even if I do prove evolution, it doesn't disprove a creator. You gave the debate to me after a whole hour when you could have gave it to me in the first minute. Then we could have had a great philosophical discussion.
Yeah, that wasn't the topic.
200 to 3.
Did you want to respond there, Mark, or do you want to carry on?
Yeah, just carry on.
Okay. Josh coming in for $10. This one is for you, Mark. Mark, I only believe what you said tonight because of your obvious Welsh accent. On a
Welsh, yeah, that's a new one. Actually, it's more likely that it's sort of got origins in Scottish, because Reid is actually a Scottish name. So yeah, somewhere in my past. Look, I probably got British and it's Welsh ancestry. I'm not sure about Welsh actually. Definitely Scottish and British. So, but yeah, the accent is quite dissimilar if you're actually familiar with accents.
Oh yeah,
I do want to say that I was just joking. I was being tongue in cheek. You know what I mean? I don't really
Hilarious.
think that about you. You know,
I was wondering,
Uh-huh.
and I'll ask in the live chat, since we all know where Mark is from, and maybe you've heard on the live streams before, but where do you think Boots I am? All right, Josh,
right, exactly.
Mark,
Right.
this is from Josh. This is the second point. So the first point was the Welsh accent idea. Sorry. On a serious note, though, props for trying to salvage anything from this conversation. So, yeah, we'll carry on from there. They got a fan chat. Dandy for $5. Mark, are you open to debating Christians that do not have a social media or YouTube presence?
Of course.
Yeah, he didn't know.
I mean, I don't know why you would need.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would need a social media presence to debate somebody. I think your ideas stand on their own merits. So it doesn't matter how popular you are. Marcus Aurelius called sort of philosophy and debate sort of the great equalizer, that ideas should be put up against one another without, regardless of who or regardless of who it comes from.
Amen. I respect Mark 100% because of exactly what you just said. Mark comes on here and I see him debate almost anybody, and he's willing to give his information, hear other people's information. I do respect him totally for that.
All right. What we're going to do, everybody, unless we get any more super chats coming in, I see that our lovely Shane Anathema has coined, or I shouldn't say coined, they have put our modern day debate Discord in the chat. I guess they did coin it because you created it. So yeah, you guys go check that out. If you want to
see what you did there.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ryan. Doc Dino is running a after show, so I'm gonna put that link in for you. If you could plug that, I'd be much appreciated. I'd really find it awesome.
All right, you guys see that? Maybe I'll come hang out for a bit. I don't know. I hung out at Amy's the other day. I shouldn't say that though, because everybody could hang out.
I shouldn't say that.
I shouldn't say that because anybody could go over there and be like, okay, I found out what Ryan thinks about certain things.
Exactly. That's actually why I said that little comment earlier. I'm like, even though you don't put it out in debate, you can see it a little bit.
But I do try to moderate as unbiased as I can, even though everybody has bias at the end of the day.
Everybody does, yeah.
Except me. I'm the only one that doesn't have bias. I need everybody to know that. I don't have bias. I'm not religious. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in anything except what can be shown in experiments. And me and Mark have pretty much agreed on all of my points tonight. I don't know why people keep saying, you know what I mean? I'm like, I've made some very compelling arguments, so compelling that Mark has had to concede on pretty much every single one. And likewise, I've conceded on the points that Mark has made.
Well, once again, since you're commenting on a thing that I had said, I will say that everybody is biased, even to the point of, if you like Kraft dinner more than an off-brand version, even to just a silly point, we all have preferences. And I think that's where we can get kind of muddied up when it comes to the words we're talking about. And that's why it's important that we have a discussion about definitions, sometimes, especially before we have conversations like the one you just saw tonight. So I'm going to give a minute to each side. Mark opened us up, so we're going to hand it over to Ross for 1 minute, and we're going to let you have a closing statement unless we have any other super chats coming in. The floor is all yours, Ross.
I just want to get ahead of this, right? Because I'm sure Mark is going to try to say that I didn't present any argument. I ran away. I did all this. Okay, but look, my arguments were very simple, that all scientific evidence that we have so far is inconclusive. Even if you're 95% of the way somewhere, you're not all the way there, all right? You don't have a full house. You have not built the foundation. The foundation that you would need to postulate that there's no creator would be abiogenesis. That's the foundation of not having a creator at some point, all right? So I would not deny scientific evidence. I do not run away from scientific evidence. I base all of this on scientific evidence. Okay, microevolution. His point, right? He's saying, I'm only arguing this one. I only want to argue about whether or not the door is there to the house. You just want to argue about the door, but you want to ignore the roof, ignore the walls, ignore the floorboard. I understand that. You can ignore the floorboard and all that. And even if I do give you a door, all you have is a door. You don't have a whole house. You don't have an entire argument. You don't have scientific experiments that prove that something could have emerged from nothing. That would be the only thing that goes against my stance tonight. Something did not come from nothing. If you do have proof of that, please bring it to me. I only want proof. Real Offended on YouTube, Real Offended on Instagram. Bring me the proof. Where's the proof that something can come from nothing? Because that's the crux of my argument. So don't say I didn't have an argument, Mark. That was it, and you conceded to it already. Don't say you didn't, because we can run the tape back.
We'll hand it over to you, Mark, for that was up to a minute and that was up to 15. So yeah, we'll give you a minute and 15 there to close us out.
Fantastic.
I'm timing you too.
I'm
just playing.
Thank you very much. So all of the evidence that I presented today, sort of the ERVs, the other genetic chromosome 2 fusion, which we kind of didn't get to. I presented the fossil record, and those are just a few of the many sets of evidence for evolution. And the interesting thing is they all converge on one point. So altogether, when you take them up, they are conclusive in their evidential power. Now, sort of if the whole idea is that you have to be absolutely 100% certain with absolutely no big wiggle room, then we couldn't make any kind of sort of evaluation of our reality at all. We couldn't convict anybody of murder. We couldn't say, hey, when I turn on the light bulb comes on, because I can't be 100% absolutely certain that that's what will happen. If I want to cross the road, I can't cross because I can't be 100% absolutely certain that a car won't run a red light. If we assign this level of certainty that Ross is sort of demanding, then nothing ever gets done and nothing ever happens. We can't be certain of anything. So really what science says is that we have overwhelming confidence in this theory of evolution. And I've presented the evidence. It's a shame Ross had nothing.
Glad you agree with me in the end.
Last super chats coming in. We'll respect it. No more super chats, everybody. We're going to let our speakers go. Time Dog for $10 Canadian. Oh, Canada. Mark, why do you find it necessary to preach non-belief? Maybe hair is up next. And Ross, we don't know wins in capital in quotations, but women who have more money, they are better thinkers than you.
No, they're not better thinkers than me. They have more money, but I mean, there's tons of dumb people that have money. You think thinking accumulates some money? You can look at the IQ scale and say that there's a threshold that when IQ gets above a certain point, people start making less money. So there's no correlation between money and intelligence. And I'm gonna tell you right now, even if somebody is smart enough to maybe beat me at a certain game or whatever, right? It's the all over around thing. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm like. Reflexes. If we're at war, right? You know how complicated a man's brain is when it comes to thinking about just killing somebody. A man can think 10-dimensionally about chess. I don't even want to get into all the chess masters, but somebody look up right now, find out how many of all the chess masters of all time are women. That doesn't mean that they're not smarter. It means that particular level of critical thinking, it's not their strong suit.
All right. The first part of that question, Mark, why do you find it necessary to preach non-belief?
I'm not sure what preaching non-belief is. Everybody believes in things, like everybody has beliefs. It depends on whether that belief is backed by a rigorous, reliable standard that sort of causes you to believe that. So when we're talking about the reliability of methods that get us to things that we think for good reasons, it seems like there are some methods better than others. So I would definitely sort of preach, if you will, not having faith, which is sort of, to my mind, basing your beliefs on no evidence and just going with what you feel or intuitive stuff. But I wouldn't preach non-belief. I guess you mean in the case of a God, it's because there is no evidence for God and a lot against it. For instance, sort of so. I think that's why I would do it, because the evidence is in that sphere would lead me to believe there is no God. And that's based upon the evidence that I see.
I agree with you. I agree with you. There's no evidence that there's God, but don't say I'm too rigid though, because you did say that. You're like, oh, well, you're too rigid. Ross wants everything to be 100%. Also, now I'm the one being too scientific. All right.
Well, does everybody agree? I hope
scientific
we all
isn't
agree.
absolutely certainty. Scientific is definitely not being absolutely certain.
Scientific is experiment and observation, sir.
Well, I was going to say, I just want to interject here, just because we want to, let you guys out of here at a reasonable hour. I mean, as much as I accomplish that, when I'm moderating. But
by the way, I'm sure Mark has been annoyed, but I would love to do it again, Mark. I'm sure you don't want to. But look, we didn't get to the flood.
I'll think about it.
You know what I mean? We didn't get to a lot.
Well, there's all kinds of stuff I'm sure we can discuss, but I want to let everybody know once again that we are doing a live in-person debate that's going to be Saturday, September 16th. That's in Houston, Texas. So in the link below, you're going to find all of the links to our speakers here. Excuse me. We have Ross from Real Offended, and he's been speaking on behalf of creationism, and we have Mark Reid speaking on behalf of evolutionism tonight, or I should say evolution. I know that's... I rolled the term over there, and now I'm going to get called out in the chat. All right, on behalf of evolution. Anyways, so thanks everybody for coming out, and I'm surprised I even have a voice.
You did a great job.
I'm surprised I even have a voice after this, after doing all that Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, and Judas Priest. But you know what, everybody? Nice. Let me close you out on some of the Cosmic Breach that I recorded with my friend. Thanks for coming out, everybody. We appreciate you guys in the super chats, keeping it friendly. Hope you enjoyed this friendly discussion. As you know, that's what we'll call it, friendly. And
it was friendly to me. I was like, just because I get loud, I never take anything personal. Even the insults are not personal to me. You feel me?
Enjoy these friendly guitar solos, everybody. Good night. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Ross.
Thank you, Mark, again. You feel me? Have a good one.
What am I to do but tear away when I'm boiling at the top? Try to find a way to fight the fires, mount a rap from the minds of liars, and call the shots as you bow your heads, and the marching never stops. The stars could be free, but this insanity bends you right by the knee. Running in circles now for something that can't be found, and I bet as you hit the wall, the rain starts to fall. You can run away, sing a tune that's true, I'll be beside you. fits of laughter turn around as your heart beat faster. Your hollow shape as the faith begins to drop. Shelter can find your thoughts of suicide. It's hanging down by the frail, running in circles now for something that can't be found, and there's no time for today. You prayed away that the world would be untrue. I will rise against you. Until they're gone, nothing can matter at all. Insanity bends you right by the nail, running in circles now for something that can't be found. Out of breath, smashed the wall, the water consumed all. You prayed away that the world would be untrue as it rose against you. When you're gone, nothing can matter at all. Did you think it would always be for free? Now sit back, watch it burn, burn, burn for all eternity. self-oppression. What am I to do but tear away when I'm boiling at the top? Try to find a way to fight the fire, smart to rap from the minds of liars. You call the shots as you bow your heads, and the march never stops. The stars could be free, but this insanity bends you right by the knee. Running in circles now for something that can't be found. And I bet as you hit the wall, the rain starts to fall. You can run away, sing a tune that's true. I'll be beside you. To decay from tears of blood, regrets of laughter. Turn around as your heart beat faster. Your hollow shape as the faith begins to drop. Shelter can find your thoughts of suicide. It's hanging down by the fray. Running in circles now for something that can't be found, and there's no time for today. The world would be untrue. I will rise against you. Insanity bends you right by the knee. Running in circles now for something that can't be found. Out of breath, smashed the wall, the water consumed all. You prayed away that the world would be untrue as it rose against you. you think it would always be for free? Now sit back, watch it burn, burn, burn forever.